Hey, 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 what's up, Seckc? All right, let's see if can we get my computer on there? No. Well, we can try. There, I turned it off and turned it back on again. Still nothing. Listen, I've got jokes on that. Let's see. So it says, it says that it's suspended. All right, well, while we work on the technical issue here, we'll get it going. So how's everybody doing tonight? All right, so I've got some announcements to make. So first and foremost, by a raise of hands, and I can't see anybody, raise your hand. Are you here for Seckc tonight? Is anybody here for a concert? Well, I got one in the back, and I think it might be Jim. Yeah, okay. Well, so who was the name of the concert? If you're here for Dale Watson, you are in the wrong area. But you can listen to me all night. This is what I sound like, and I won't be singing. That was a joke. What did you say, Windows what? Windows key and P. And yeah, that's what I had it.
Do you want me to sing for you?
Yes.
It's amore.
Well, so while we do this, I'm going to do 101. We'll do it live. So anybody in the back there in the back, not in this room, if it's your first time coming to Seckc, get in here. I don't think they heard me either.
Everyone behind the shut the fuck up wall, get over here.
If you're new, yeah, you made the slides, but you don't get to see it because we're having technical difficulty. All right, well, anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. So welcome to Seckc. Oh, maybe. I know. I think we had this same problem yesterday or last month or whenever it was. I do not. Sure. Well, anyway, Seckc is the biggest and bestest monthly InfoSec in the world, event in the world. Thanks for coming out. This is our second month at Knuckleheads. I want to hear it real quick. How do you guys love Knuckleheads so far? I love it. I love it too. I love it too. So now I can kind of see real quick. Is there any first-time people here today? Oh wow, we've got a few. Who's as a first-timer? Who's willing to come up on stage for me just a second? I want 2 or 3 of them. Get up here. Come around this way. Come around this way. You're fine. Go ahead. Go that whichever way.
He really
give me one
doesn't
more.
bite.
Give me one more. If you're a first-timer, get up here. So while we work on the tech, this is called running the clock is what this is called while we're working on technical issues. So I want to hear, first of all, hello, my name is Bill. I want to hear your name and how you heard about Seckc and what you're interested in, okay? So your name, how you heard about Seckc, and what you're interested in, okay? All right, here you go.
My name is Matt. I heard about it from Eagle Eater, and I'm interested in Blue Team. So that. However else I can run down the clock.
Yeah.
But.
Well, thanks, Matt. First of all, go Blue Team. I'm a Blue Teamer too. All right, how about you? So first of all, do you know the difference between telling the truth and telling a lie? Didn't I say first timers? Okay, go ahead.
My name is Zayden. I heard about Seckc from my mom, and I like hacking.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Now you have to go after that.
I'm Nick. I heard of this place from just Google, local security groups, and I'm interested in red teaming.
Heck yeah.
My name's CJ. I learned about Seckc from my friend Debbie. Yes, Debbie! I'm interested in privatizing banking securely.
Well, let's have it for our first timers. Thank you all. Thanks for coming up. You guys are so brave. This one over here, she's brought weapons. I saw them earlier. You don't lie. All right. So, hey, thank you, technical team. Just in case you didn't know who came up and fixed it, that was one of our speakers, Neil, that came up and fixed it. So Neil has a lot of experience with DEF CON, so I imagine that, or Black Hat and DEF CON, I imagine he has to fix all of these people's speakers. All right, well, I can't do a slideshow because I'm not connected to Wi-Fi. But so anyway, we are at Seckc. You have made it. Thank you guys for being here. I want to do a couple quotes real quick that I heard after the Seckc event last month. These were a couple quotes that I heard. First of all, I really like this one. Seckc, pragmatically fun and aesthetically cool place to be, cool thing to do. That was one quote that I heard. Another quote that I heard was, Bill, you suck. In fact, I heard it twice. I heard it once from Dan, right there. Thanks, Dan. And then about 5 minutes later, I heard it from Julie. Thank you. I appreciate. I just want to be part of the conversation, quite honestly. Thank you. So, so being that, just to be real quick, well, I'll go there in a second. So, just for moms and dads, of little ones, Seckc meetings, we're kind of rated somewhere between PG-13 and rated R. There won't be any nudity, but there may be bad words, okay? So we'll try and take it a little bit easy, but just so you know, that's kind of where we're hitting Seckc. That being said, if anything happens that you don't like, okay, so if somebody comes up and is maybe taking a little too far, they're saying something you don't like, find somebody with a yellow badge that's a code of conduct person, let us know, and we will take care of it. What real interesting thing, as I was going through and making these slides, and I found this picture of all 3 of these code of conduct badges, all those people are banned. All those people are no longer to be here. But so we've got new yellow badges. I thought that was interesting. So our motto: motorcycles are awesome. Destroy no data, maintain no persistence, and above all else, do no harm. Right, so we are going to be talking about hacking topics. We are going to be talking about shenanigans. All of those things are great, but hey, at the end of the day, let's be nice people. Do no harm. So shenanigans are fine. Just do no harm. Go what? Go. I can't. I would or I won't. How about that? I will not. Okay, so for any of the newbies that are here, if anybody comes up to you and they start asking about crimes that you've committed, and they're tugging on their sleeve and asking, hey, what crimes have you committed in the last month? Don't admit to crimes. We, state and federal law enforcement, they attend Seckc, and we encourage them to. So just to be clear, we, first of all, don't do crimes, but if you do not admit to crimes at Seckc. So I really like having local law enforcement here. I want them to get to know our group. I want them to learn. I want them to be welcome. And so if you do meet some law enforcement, say hi. It's all good. So one thing, if you are law enforcement and you come up to me later and say, hey, I'd like a member list. We don't have a member list. Sorry, I can't provide that information to you. All right, everybody belongs at Seckc. So we first of all, I don't know if you saw that. That was a completely random pick of people that came up on the stage. These are our newbies. Everyone belongs at Seckc. So if you want to be a part of Seckc, you attend. That is it. That is the requirement to be a member, is to choose to be a member. If you're going to be talking to someone, please assume that they are technical. And, so no matter what that person may look like or whatever, assume that they're technical. And quite honestly, you're probably going to find out that they're a lot more technical than you are. So keep that in mind. Okay, parents, I'm going to try and be good here. Nope, shut the fuck up. If you are or if you're in here and you are watching a talk and you want to talk, go out there. Back out there is our social hour place. That is where you talk. In here is to listen to speakers, and out there is for jabbering. All right. Thank you. Everybody understand? Okay. Do I need to do more crowd work? Yes. Okay. I think so too. Show me the hands of somebody else that's new, the first timer that didn't come up on stage. All right. We got one right here. You? Isn't that the whole table newbies? Oh, not Debbie. Oh, yeah. All right. Did you? So what's your name? Yell it out. I can hear you. Hey, Josh, did you happen to find a wooden token on the table? No. Josh did not find a wooden token. Yes. Okay. Interesting. Maybe play with that. Okay, so listen, I get it. I know. It's tough. It's tough, especially when we have people on stage like me. I know that I'm awesome. I get it. And it's hard to go after Bill. I know. I get it. And it's hard when we're bringing in big names and like you, and well, I can't go up and give a talk after Bill. Like that, nobody wants to do it. I get it. But we want you. It's your turn. And quite honestly, we are doing an amazing job. Lena, we're crushing it. We're doing so good. We have plans through the rest of the year that are going to blow your mind. But what I want to do is I want to start planting the seeds right now that when we move into 2026, we're really going to be pushing hard on the local talent. And and I've given a talk about this. I'm going to summarize it real quick. I already know how you feel. I know that you feel that you probably, there may be somebody in there that's thinking, oh, cool, I've got a cool talk that I've been working on, or something that I want to go talk about. Awesome, I want those talks. But there's going to be a lot of you out there that feel, I don't have anything to talk about, right? I'm going to tell you something, that's wrong. Right? So here's the way that I think about it. When we have our audience, we've got anywhere from 150 to 200 people in here. And if you get up on stage and you teach one person one thing, maybe you're talking about something they've known about and they already know about, and you teach them one thing, that was a positive thing, right? So start thinking about what you can share back to our community. I'm going to tell you something. This is a really easy stage to talk on. We've got a very, very forgiving crowd. As you saw, my computer didn't work when I got up here on stage, and I had 5 people come up and help work it out, right? That's how giving a talk here is. You may get me, quite honestly, you might get me in the crowd throwing it back at you, but that's fun. We're here to I know, right? Bill, you suck. I know. Thank you. Okay. Rant over, I'll move on. Okay. So the coolest thing about Seckc is we're all nice people. Go meet somebody new. Literally, if you want to meet somebody today, just go say hi. It's that easy. And you're going to find that in this group of people, your tribe may be here. Maybe you've been working on some kind of technology that you don't think anybody else is working on. Well, there may be somebody here that knows it better than you or that can learn from you. Go meet them. And as you're meeting people, please hold everybody accountable. That's why people say, Bill, you suck. If they say something wrong, challenge them on those ideas, right? We're here to learn from each other, but we are not here to challenge people. So challenge ideas, do not challenge people. Thank you very much. If you'd like to get involved, our Discord is crushing. So our Discord is wild, y'all. So if you are on Discord, you can go to seckc.org/connect. That'll get you on our Discord. We're on all the socials. I don't know, does social media still exist anymore? I don't know. But if you are on social, we want you to use the hashtag Seckc on all the things, specifically LinkedIn. Thank you. Because that's the new hotness. What? Hey, I don't get to make up the rules. I just report them. All right, Seckc is run by volunteers. If you see something that, gosh, I sure could do 101 better than Bill, then do it. So we are all volunteers, and we need a lot of help. It takes a lot of coordination to get this done. And quite honestly, you should see our coordination meetings. They're a disaster. I know, they truly are. But we need help, right? So just if there's something that you're interested in, quite honestly, here's the way it works. If there's something that you would like to be involved with, whether that be audio, video, organization, planning, and just just reach out, and we will certainly leverage your help, and we need it. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Be the change that you want. I just kind of ran through that. Thank you, Bill. You're welcome. Whoa, I got 3 slides on volunteers. That's how much we need you. Eric, are you in the hot dog? Eric, are you in the audience? All right, hot dog, Eric. Well, we had a swag contest, and this is what won. Hot dog, I love Seckc. This is now available on our swag store. This is a patch. It was submitted by, and I do believe that guy's name is Hot Dog Eric. It is now. You can get swag, speaking of swag, on our online store. We're hoping to have some in person soon. That would be so nice. But if you want it online right now. Okay, let me talk about what our schedule is. So right now, I have about 45 more minutes of me time. Okay, so hi, it's me. This is 101. So at 6:15, so I'm 5 minutes over already. That's awesome. We're going to be doing the news with Netcode. Thank you, Netcode. You're awesome. And then we're going to get into our speakers at 6:45 with Joe, and then Neil's going on after that. As always, we've got our DJ Johnny in the back. Let's give him a big round of applause, making this place stay dope. Hey. Listen, the bartenders here continue to be awesome. I got to tell you, I love working with the Knuckleheads crew. You guys kill it, so make sure you're tipping your bartenders. And with that, y'all, I'm out. Thanks, Johnny, and we'll get it set up for the news.
All right, so this is the news. I'm Netcode or Isaiah, Code Netcode, whatever. Anyway, start with ransomware. There's been a lot of ransomware activity. I'm not covering all of it. There's a lot. We're only covering a little bit. Ingram Micro, you guys might have heard about this one on Thursday. They've been having a little bit of a fun time. SafePay got them really good. Apparently they got in via Global Protect. Thank you, Cisco. Hunter International is shutting down, so who knows? Apparently they're just giving out decryptors, which is a little weird. I don't think they normally do that, but for some reason they are. I suspect they're going to rebrand and come right back, as most do, but we'll see. Radix, a Swiss healthcare nonprofit, got ransomed by sarcoma, which I think is a bit mean. They're having a lot of trouble recovering, to no one's surprise. It's a nonprofit. Marks and Spencer's, I don't know anyone that's really sad about this, but Marks and Spencer's got ransomed. And then when they asked if they paid, because they've been recovering pretty well, they said, I don't think it's in the public interest to go into that. So that sounds to me like they paid, and they paid a lot more than they wanted to, and they don't want to talk about it. Okay, now breaches. There's been a lot of these too. Again, we're only covering some of them. Qantas, now they're being extorted after the fact as well, because data was stolen, and extortion is very profitable. Hy-Vee got breached, unfortunately. Not ransomed, just breached. They lost 53 gigs of data, I think. I don't think they said what it is, though. Columbia, the university, not the town or whatever, got breached, and that seemed to be a politically motivated one, but they stole 2.5 million student applications and some teachers' or professors' information. SK Telecom, they got popped in April, and they're now being made to pay, well, they lost 27 million pieces of user data, and now they're being made to pay, I think it's $389 million in fines. So, 367? I can't read. Why are you calling me out on stage? This is mean. What the fuck? The International Criminal Court got breached. They said it didn't really impact anything, but who knows? I just thought it was funny. Hawaiian Airlines also got breached. And again, they said it was only customer information and it wasn't that bad. But it seems to be about the same as JetBlue, which happened even earlier this year. United Natural Foods, or UNFI, you guys might have heard of them. They are one of the main providers for Whole Foods. They got popped, I think they announced that they got popped on the 10th last month. And then as of like yesterday, they are finally mostly back to where they were. So a month is not the worst, but it took them a bit. It's also not the best. Now on to justice. There's actually been a lot of takedowns in the last month or two. DPRK workers have been indicted and arrested, which has been very fun. They raided 29 laptop farms. I forget how many arrests there were, but there were quite a few. The SolarWinds is now settling with the SEC. They haven't said for how much, just that they are settling. I think they're also going private, so I think that might have something to do with that. Breach forums. This was huge, actually. The French police arrested a bunch of breach forum admins. In total, 5 people. People affiliated with Shiny Hunters, Hollow, Noct, and Depressed. I don't know what's up with Baphomet, but now they've gotten most of the administrators or moderators are breached, so that's kind of fun. I don't think France is very happy because also I think they might be happy, but everyone's making fun of France now because Intel brokers, because they arrested the guy who behind Intel broker, and he was also French. And they arrested him there. And every one of these people were in their mid-20s. Mid-20 males in France, sorry. But that was part of the same operation, I believe, as breached. ReEvil, this is fun. 4 members of ReEvil are now released after time served. It's 4 years instead of 5. I think they counted initial holding time, but now they're going to be back and probably back in business. You'll love to see it. Archetype market was shut down as part of Operation Deep Sentinel. They'd been active for about 5 years and made approximately $289 million in Monero. Just a little bit. Cyber Avengers, there's now a $10 million bounty on any information about Cyber Avengers. If you don't know them, they had a couple attacks on US and Israeli water utilities. Operation Secure disrupted a bunch of InfoStealer malware. You know, it worked pretty well. They got 32 people across 26 countries, along with data seizures and server takedowns. And I think seizures on those as well. Now, onto some fun vulnerabilities. I don't know if anyone saw this one, it's like a day or 2 ago, but there was a fun little pseudo bug where you could just, this describes it pretty well. You could just be pseudo with the allow file, or because of how the allow file was being interpreted, I guess. You could just say, yeah, I'm on this host. You're good. Citrix. I know everyone loves Citrix, and we all use Citrix, and it's wonderful. You remember Citrix Bleed 2 years ago? They're doing it again. You give them an HTTP request, and they give you memory, including secret keys, because they're really nice like that. I think the patch might work, but that's what we thought 2 years ago, too. And also, they released this saying, yeah, this just affects NetScaler management interface, which isn't too much of a concern. Psych, it affects the exact same endpoints that Citrix Bleed did. So it's literally just Citrix Bleed 2. And Kevin Beaumont has a really, really good write-up on it. Brother. I know you all love Brother printers. Rapid7 found a fun way to generate the admin passwords for, I think it's 689 Brother printers and scanners. They also found some other ones that are not this exact exploit, but that's mildly concerning because they say they can't even fix it by patching firmware. That feels like a lazy excuse to me, but okay. Echo leaks, kind of fun. You can send an email or to a person at a company and abuse Copilot to just get information back without the person ever clicking on the email at all, because Copilot is wonderful and it's perfect and it works so well in every way and has amazing data security. Avanti. I just like bashing Avanti, I'm sorry. They didn't have a whole lot this month. There were some funny things, but nothing crazy. Or I saw anyway. Same with Fortinet, like exactly the same. Theirs was a little funnier, but nothing absolutely crazy. If any of you play Call of Duty, you might have heard about this one. I hope you don't play anything pre-2019, but Call of Duty World War II from 2017, I think, has a little RCE. And from what I understand, it's in the network, like the game's network stack, because it's peer-to-peer. Don't make your multiplayer games peer-to-peer. That's a bad idea. Anyway, this isn't actually new. This has been a problem since like the original COD games all the way up till, I think, Modern Warfare 2019 is when they finally changed to only servers or routing traffic correctly. This also isn't a problem on the Steam version. It's only a problem on the Microsoft version from Game Pass, because Steam has a phenomenal thing for peer-to-peer networking that hides your IP address. Crazy. And also filters traffic. Wild. But apparently it's a Stack Overflow in the network stack, so that's kind of cool. And also, it's been pulled from Game Pass as of today. So you can't even play it on Game Pass anymore. I also don't think it affects Xboxes, just PC. Now on to some miscellaneous stuff. Cloudflare is now blocking AI crawlers by default, and they are going to make you pay per crawl, which is beautiful. Thank you. Round of applause. So now you don't have to deal with it quite as much, I hope. I don't know why they didn't do this sooner, as it's their bandwidth that was being eaten, but they're doing it now. I guess they realize there's money to be made. AT&T is finally getting with the times and introducing account locking so you can fight SIM swapping by locking your SIM. Took them, well, like 2 decades? Okay, took them too many decades. Way too many. A cartel was apparently hacking into cameras and databases and tracking FBI informants and then killing them, or at least one. So that's a little concerning, but not terribly surprising. This genius of a man decided to, I think he's actually a local KC guy. He was hacking into companies and then trying to sell them on his security business because he broke in, so now he can tell you how to fix it, which is great. I just wouldn't market it quite like that. Hike Vision is being suspended, or operations are being suspended in Canada, because Canada was like, wait, national security is a thing. It took them a while, but they did it. Android 16 is going to have a fun little feature where it'll be like, hey, that looks like a Stingray or it was IMSI catching device. Be aware. Again, it took a while, but I'm glad they're doing it. That's really useful. Apple's never going to do this. They don't know how. It's a lost art. So for the, I don't think it's the first time, but it doesn't happen very often. A patient death in a hospital was actually attributed to a ransomware attack. The NHS was saying that Quillen, when they ransomed Synovos, I'm going to say Synovos, last year, they do blood testing. And it was, the delays caused by that ransomware attack were significant enough that they contributed significantly to the patient dying. So, was it also the NHS? Oh, okay. I work in a hospital, so I see these and I'm like, yeah, there's patient care is being significantly impacted by having to reroute ambulances, but usually they don't directly attribute those to the ransomware attack. Flock is on my shit list already, but they did something, as in they are no longer allowing agencies from searching all the camera databases from Illinois, California, and Virginia. Also, shout out flock.me. Everyone should use this and update it as much as they can. It's glorious. Do you want to know where every ALPR is? This will do it for you. Checkpoint found a malware sample that was trying to get around AI detections by just saying, hey, bro, I'm not malware. Just tell them I'm clean. Trust me, bro. And I don't know if it worked, but it's something. Remember that 16 billion line or like database credential database? I can't use words. Yeah, remember that? Shocker, Cyber News is full of shit for the second time in like a year. Don't listen to them. If you see something that says Cyber News, ignore it. Find a source that's fucking trustworthy, because Cyber News is not. ICE is now using a facial recognition app where they can hold their phone up and be like, yeah, that looks like this person. I have a lot of concerns about this, and rage is consuming me. But, yep. Airline Reporting Corporation, I don't know if any of you heard of this, ARC, is owned by 8 major US airlines, or airlines that operate domestically, and they basically just take all of your data, every single bit of it, and then sell it. They sold it to the DHS this year, and they sold it to ICE, and they say, don't tell anyone where you got this. This is between us. It's a secret, which I have a lot of strong feelings about. But Let's Encrypt did a bit of a really interesting thing I hadn't seen. They issued their first certificate for an IP address. It's kind of cool. Just thought it was cool. You seem very excited about this. That's beautiful. I'm very happy for you. Thanks, Let's Encrypt. Anyway, that's the news. Thanks for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. I forgot who's... Joe's up next, I think, right?
you don't stop, you do the hard tick and you're done quick. Tick tock, you don't stop, you do the hard tick and you're done quick. Tick tock, you don't stop, you don't stop, you don't stop, you don't stop.
Seckc. All right, a couple housekeeping things before I introduce our speaker. If you ordered a Badge Pirates badge for B-Sides, Kevin is in the back, FG, go talk to him. Thank you to our sponsors, Cisco, Palo Alto, Soft Warfare. Thank you so much for sponsoring us. You make this happen. And so I had the pleasure of meeting Joe Marshall last night, had dinner with him. I've started calling him the Ukrainian time wizard. He's it was an incredible story hearing about what he did. I'll let him get into it, but without further ado, Joe Marshall.
Thank you, friend. What's up, my dudes, dudettes? How are you guys tonight? All right. So, my name's Joe. I've come all the way from Baltimore. Shout out to Lena and the directors from Seckc for inviting me and letting me come out, have amazing Kansas City barbecue, free booze, and just getting to meet really awesome and really cool people. So, who the fuck am I? Pardon my French. I work at a place called Talos, Cisco Talos, where we do threat intelligence for Cisco, and do just a crap load of cyber stuff. This is not really going to be a cyber conversation, but this is definitely going to be some next level, weird, janky, hacker shit, and it's a cool story. And it's a bit of a sad story as well, because I'm going to be talking about war, I'm going to be talking about people getting hurt, I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff that is not nice to talk about, unfortunately, but it's the reality that, unfortunately, some people have to live through right now, whether you're in the Middle East or you're in Ukraine or any other conflict zone, you're in Sudan. It's just kind of the way things are. And one of the things I want to be able to give you when you walk out of this is that you can make a difference in those places sometimes. Just being an awesome hacker and thinking outside of the box, you can do some really cool shit. So I'm going to go ahead and give a quick disclaimer. I'm not here representing Cisco. I'm not here representing Talos. I'm just here being Joe, you know, the loudmouth braggart who uses bad language and likes really expensive whiskey. So cheers. Hi, friends. All right. So what's all this then, eh? I've had the pleasure of going to Ukraine twice. I went in 2017 and in 2018 to work with power grids. I am a cybersecurity expert in SCADA, industrial control systems, operational technology, things like that. Last month, you guys got to hear my SCADA brother, Chris Sistrunk, talk. I love Chris, magnificent human being, one of the nicest guys I know. So we kind of operate in the same orbit, right? But I do a lot of other stuff as well. And when the power was turned off twice via hacking in Ukraine, oh no, yeah, absolutely, yeah, no, that's Vladimir Putin. He's coming after me. So I've been to Ukraine twice. I worked with power companies out there, critical infrastructure organizations out there, and we've always maintained a real tight relationship with both the government and private industry, especially critical infrastructure in that country. And I work at a place that's a threat intelligence organization. I'm not fee for service. I couldn't bill anybody if I wanted to. It's my job, and it's a pretty sweet gig, I'm not gonna lie. I get to go to places, do really cool hacker stuff, and I'm not there to sell anybody anything. I just wanna help people, right? Now, the reverse of that is, it's not 100% altruism. I get to collect really cool threat intel and bring it back to my home base and talk to friends and go, hey, I saw this really wild thing over there. And they're like, oh, no shit. And I go, yeah, no shit. And then we start to form other cool relationships, and we are able to really kind of grow ourselves from a threat intel perspective. You guys all know this because you're in this audience tonight. Cybersecurity is fundamentally a people business. All right? Yeah, knowing a lot of technical stuff is fantastic. That's like the barrier to entry sometimes. But truth be told, it's a lot of who I know, not what I know. So I'm not an expert in everything, despite what you may have heard. So being able to say, hey, Chris Sistrunk, my dude, have you heard of this? And he could go, or Joe, have you seen this before? And it's just this cross-pollination. But it happens because I meet guys like Chris and Lena and really awesome people at places like this. And I'm going to have a drink with a bunch of you later, I hope. Come find me. Tell me what you do, what you're working on. What's your favorite anime, and why is it Bleach? And stuff like that. So, it's all good, like, really and truly. So, sometimes to be really great or to have a great thing happen or to be involved in a thing, it's just dumb luck. I don't know why my phone's ringing, sorry. It's just dumb luck. A couple years ago, I was in a steakhouse in San Jose, California, and I was eating dinner with some Ukrainians. You cannot leave Ukraine if you're a military-aged male, all right? That country's under martial law. You may be drafted to fight. So you don't get to leave unless the government says you can leave the borders of your country. So I was sitting in a place called Sundance the Steakhouse. This is actually a picture of the room that I was in. And an account manager goes, hey, Joe, I got some Ukrainians in town, my dude. Will you come give a threat landscape brief? What are the bad guys up to? And I'm like, absolutely, I'll do that. Plus, this organization was from an organization in Ukraine called Ukrenergo. They are responsible for the entire transmission grid of Ukraine. All that high voltage, big tower stuff you guys see everywhere that's going at like 300,000, 100,000 kilovolts all over the country, that's what they're responsible for. Not like an Evergy, it's Evergy right here, right? It's not like an Evergy, they're distribution, all right? They're there to take your money and pay your bills. The big organizations are running the big fat, what we call bulk power transfer, right? So Ukrenergo is the only company in Ukraine that does it, they're state-owned. And so I haven't talked to a Ukrainian since the war has really broken out in person. So they're in the USA. So I flew 6 hours to have dinner with these guys and give them a threat brief. And I just turned them upside down and I shook them by their ankles and I went, what the fuck is going on in Ukraine right now? All I'm seeing is what I'm seeing in your threat telemetry as I'm threat hunting for you guys. And they told me some of the wildest stories I've ever heard, both from a electronic warfare perspective, from a cyber perspective, from a physical perspective, drones buzzing houses and exploding, like just wild stuff, right? If the ice melts in this whiskey before I finish it, that's probably the worst thing that's gonna happen to me today, all right? No one tried to kill me or my loved ones, or sent a missile or a drone at me or near me. Cool? All right? So they're telling me all these wild stories. And I had a bit of a revelation that a very famous, well, he's famous to me, a YouTuber named Perun, who does amazing defense economics videos. And you should look him up on YouTube, Perun, he's phenomenal. Said something that stuck with me for most of my career, which is that war does not suffer anyone's bullshit, all right? There's only the practical cold reality of what it takes to stay alive and fight, and all that extraneous academic shit goes right out the window because it's gonna get you or someone you love killed, all right? So only practical, viable solutions work in a war zone. And the Ukrainians were giving me that clarity because they're telling me about how to keep the power grid online when missiles and drones are flying into their substations, killing their engineers and blowing up their critical infrastructure. They're also enduring a lot of cyber attacks. They were enduring electronic warfare, which we're gonna get into. And I was really only aware of the cyber stuff. And I used to work at an electric utility, so as they told me about what was going on in their sort of EW, their electronic warfare, their radio spectrum space, I was fascinated by it. And they weren't coming to me for answers. They were just telling me what was going on. They were on actually a junket. They went to a State Department-sponsored conference in San Diego to talk to their vendors who sell them all their equipment that makes power transfer possible in their country, saying, look, we're getting shellacked. Can you guys help us? And the answer was no. So we've talked about Ukrenergo. Who are they? All right. They run 25,000 kilometers of high voltage line through the country, or they did. They've lost a lot of it. When these things are blown up, they're not replaceable. If I lose a high voltage transformer right now in the United States, tornado, act of God, redneck on meth with a machine gun shoots up a transformer, all right? Hey, I'm from Alabama, I've seen it, all right? To replace a really, really high voltage, big transformer, a large pad transformer, it'll take you 2 to 3 years because the supply chain is completely screwed, all right? So now lose them to armed conflict at scale, and how do you fix it? Well, you need to be a Ukrainian because they're ingenious sons of bitches and they figure it out. They have no choice. There is no giving up. The hardest people I've ever met in my life are Ukrainians, well and truly. So this number fluctuates because they're able to repair and rebuild some of this stuff. But more accurate really is, it's a game of, it's money. So a hypersonic, say a Kinzhal or Caliber missile costs $3 million. I'm gonna go blow up a transmission substation that's irreplaceable, right? And the worst part about it is, let's say, hey, Germany, Estonia, Latvia, one of these other countries, can you give me your equipment? It's not a one-to-one, guys. It doesn't work that way. Ukraine operates at 700,000 kilovolts on their high side, their transmission line. The next closest country is at 400,000 kilovolts, and that's Germany. I can't take a 400,000 kV transformer, put it on a 700,000 kV power line. It will explode dramatically, right? So when these things are partially damaged, they actually will weld the holes closed in the transformer, pour oil back in it, and re-energize it, which is basically a 50-50 shot if I made a bomb. They don't have a choice because they can't replace it, all right? So these guys and gals are ingenious. They're making do with what they have, which is spit, baling wire, and massive balls. So they sent me these pictures. They shared some of these pictures with me. Here's one of their dams in the Dnieper River being destroyed. Top left is a geothermal plant that's been destroyed. The transmission substation, the bottom right, completely erased. It's gone. There's no rebuilding that, right? And yet somehow they managed to keep power on in that country spotty, but they still are able to run an economy and fight a war with as little as they have. They've lost a lot of power generation, all right? And this is all gonna matter here in a minute. I'm gonna explain it here in a minute, all right? So this was kind of before war and then during the war. And actually, it actually gets kind of a lot worse because this is actually, I think, mid-2024. Every generation plant, every hydrothermal plant, every coal plant that eats a missile or a drone, if it can't be replaced, it would take 2 to 3 years to fix it, and they don't have that time, and they sure as hell don't have the money, all right? They're spending every dollar they have just to stay alive, and they're putting literally all of their economy into the war effort. There is nothing else, They have nothing else other than what Europe is able to donate them and what I guess we used to give them. I don't know. More on that later. So this is just an interesting timeline. It gets so cold in Ukraine, they actually have generation plants that are purely to heat buildings. It's a very old school Soviet way of doing critical infrastructure in Eastern Europe. So they have literally cooling and heating plants, and now the Russians are targeting them because they're basically trying to freeze people to death. All right, winter is over. Actually, the Ukraine got extremely lucky that they had a very mild winter. All right, I've been there in the early fall, and I had to take a big jacket. It gets cold as shit there. So you can kind of see the dip towards the end. You have 2022, things are great, and then everything goes to absolute crap because it's all getting blown up. This is all data you can find online. I'm just trying to basically demonstrate to you that not only is critical infrastructure being hit kinetically, it's just being smoked in every way you could think of. Sometimes it's a private conscriptor with an AK-47 spraying bullets at a transformer. Sometimes it could be an actual act of God. It could be an ice storm. I've seen some real high wind, blizzard conditions have really wrecked stuff over there. We have that problem here in the United States, but typically no one's shooting at you while you're trying to fix stuff. Usually. So you're probably wondering, well, what about solar and wind and all that stuff? They're doing their best, all right? So you can see renewables are going up, but everything else is going down because they're losing their nuclear plants, not getting blown up, but they're being taken away from them, like in Zaporizhzhia. They're losing their coal plants, they're using their liquefied natural gas plants, and they're losing the infrastructure to transfer that power. This just gives you an idea of a map of just the missile and drone attacks that are hit. Something I'm going to tell you now, there's nowhere safe in Ukraine. The entire country is bracketed. I can fire a missile from all the way in Rostov-on-Don or St. Petersburg, whatever. It has enough range to go past Ukraine into Poland and then some, right? There's nowhere you can hide in that country that the Russians cannot blow up. And my friends are in danger. This is actually from Sunday. My friend Taras, who I'm going to mention later, that red circle is his apartment. And that giant fireball was the building that the drone hit. All right? So it's personal for me when I'm telling you about all this because there's people over there I love and I care about, and I want to see them stay alive, and I want to see their family and friends stay alive. So when I'm having dinner with Ukrainians and they're telling me problems, I am present and I am listening, even if I don't have the answers. And that's okay, but at least I was there and I didn't bullshit them, and I said, lay your problems on me, man. What's going on, right? That's all I have to do. And turns out it turned into something. And sometimes they do get hurt and killed. So these were two power engineers that were in Odessa. They were in a substation. Substations are more usually bigger than like just a bunch of transformers and switches and stuff. They actually can have little mini data centers in them. They can have climate-controlled little areas inside of them. 141 power company employees have been killed in that country from missile attacks, drone attacks, artillery strikes, landmines, unexploded ordnance that maybe they stepped on and they didn't see. And sometimes it's just you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so these are no different from the linemen and linewomen out there, you know, in the middle of an ice storm, making sure that you've got power to your house so you can stay warm in winter or cool in the summer, that we can have, you know, all this glorious electricity flowing through this place right now. So suffice to say, I have a lot of respect and love for people who do this kind of work. Talk a little bit about cyber. They shared this with me from their sim that they never, actually based on this, can you tell me when the invasion started? Based on this graph? Holy shit, all right? Feb 24th, 2022. One day everyone's minding their own business and then everything goes to hell in a handbasket, right? So from the cyber attack perspective, we didn't see anything necessarily novel or new. We didn't see any kind of weird custom ransomware or malware. We saw a lot of wiper attacks. We saw basically all the implants that they had crafted and inserted before kinetic invasion happened were triggered. So they burned a lot of assets. Basically, you know, they only had a limited number of bullets in the gun, and they decided we're going to burn this access because it's going to get turned off and blocked the second they go, oh crap, they popped this machine or whatever. So and honestly, it didn't do that much. They did a lot more damage with their physical attacks. So now I'm going to tell you how a power grid works, and I'm going to do my very best to be concise and succinct with this because I want you fine folks to understand just how damn complex this problem was to solve. All right. In Ukraine, in the United States, bulk power delivery, the really high voltage stuff, right? We have to manage that, all right? And it's like the vaudevilling act where the guy's spinning 9 plates and the plates are all spinning and the plates must keep spinning no matter what gets shaking. And if one plate falls and another plate falls and another plate falls, and it's all bad. It's dominoes. It goes to shit real fast. There are systems designed for high voltage power grids to prevent that. And in Ukraine, they have one called WAMS, Wide Area Management System. I hit the button again, sorry. It's made by General Electric, all right? And these egghead-looking sons of bitches here are sitting in this dispatch center. This is from ISO New England. And they're looking at this one-line chart, and this is a vast geographic area. You can't tell, but this is Massachusetts and Connecticut and New York, and these are really important substations. And they're just measuring and looking at the power to make sure that the grid is healthy, that things can continue to operate, that you can get power, your distribution utilities can get power, and everyone is happy, right? They are balancing these plates very carefully. And this is what it looks like. It's not very sexy, but this is how it actually works. So these transmission operators, these independent system operators, are responsible for making sure the grid stays balanced. And balance is the right word. Balance is the right word. So in the United States, we operate at 60 hertz. In the rest of the world, they operate at 50. We invented electricity. I don't know why everyone doesn't do what we do, but whatever. So, what the fuck is a kilometer? You mean a freedom unit? I don't know what that is. Yeah. So I just know beer comes in pints, all right? So here we go, all right. So demand and supply, or demand and generation have to be equal. Let's say it's really hot, and Evergy sends you guys a text message and goes, I need you guys to cut your power or turn up your ACs. We'll cut you a discount on your power bill for like 10 cents a kilowatt hour or something like that. And you go, hell no, it's hot, right? Yep, no one likes Evergy. No one likes their power companies. Well, they have a problem then. That goes, okay, we either need to increase demand or increase generation. We got to spin up more turbines to keep everyone with the lights on. Or we have to strip demand, and that means blackouts. That means us deliberately opening the circuit to de-energize specific things, because if the grid gets too out of whack, they'll do it for you whether you like it or not. You get a, what's that? This is not California, no. Very well could be. I'm also looking at you, Texas. Why is it always Texas? Am I right? Fucking Texas. All right, so here we go. So we have to keep the seesaw balanced. And you can see the 50 hertz, 49, 51. Well, that's how we measure the sine wave. It's just simple physics, all right? I can see what a sine wave is when I touch, well, not physically touch, but I can do a monitor like an oscilloscope or something, and I can go, yep, we're operating at 50 hertz. That's how we know that the grid is health. And we actually have these little tiny boxes called phasor measurement units, PMUs, and they're in these really strategic substations, in this case, all over Ukraine. Enjoy this very shitty AI map of Ukraine. They had to chop down the last redwood in California to make this. I have no idea. But you can kind of see the little pins and stuff like that. Like those would be like where the critical substations for power delivery are in that country, right? And so we have multiple time zones, all right? We have vast distances. Ukraine's the largest country in Europe, right? And I need to know at the exact same time, no matter where you see that push pin at, what the state of that grid is in. And when you collect that data and you send it to me, I need it accurately time-stamped. Remember the guys in the dispatch centers with the big screen? They're going to get, oh, we're at 50 hertz in Lviv, and this was taken at 1300 on the dot, all right? And if it happens in Kyiv or Kharkiv or Odessa, like it has to be synchronized, because if the times are out of whack, I'm going to make really bad decisions on bad data, and I'm going to go, oh shit, we need to generate power. You didn't need to generate power. You needed to reduce your power consumption, all right? And that's why visibility happens. And actually, we use GPS to do that, believe it or not. This is a global standard. This is not unique, all right? And if anyone knows, we all use GPS here. You probably use GPS to literally get here. Lena and I did. And basically, in medium Earth orbit, you got, for the U.S. constellation, there are multiples. We've got 32 satellites orbiting us, all right? They talk to a ground station, and our phones very, very meekly and weakly talk to those things. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, it's also called PNT, Precision Navigation and Time. With power grids, we don't care about where you are. We care about when you are. Believe it or not, those satellites in orbit also have atomic clocks in them. So you're getting hyper-accurate time. when you are connecting to that satellite and you want to know what time it is. I could be on the other side of the planet. As long as I'm looking at the same satellite constellation, I know precisely what time it is in Perth, Australia, as I do now. No time zone difference, no transmission delays. It's time-stamped because they're talking to the same atomic satellite, which does nanoseconds of time accuracy with very little skew, right? So I like to use this metaphor. I've got a marching band, 25,000 kilometers long, and I need you to step on your left foot every 2 seconds. It's not going to happen. No marching band can do that, right? But, because over the horizon, the tubas can't hear the drums can't see the woodwinds, nobody can see the drum major. It's a really long parade. But if every mile I got someone with a stopwatch, and we're all on the same synchronized stopwatch, I can go, we need to slow these guys down, they're going to bump into the woodwinds, right? We can make actual data corrections based on that, and we're all using atomic clocks in orbit to synchronize that. Without that, we're going to be making some bad decisions, and we're not going to be able to coordinate our time. Power grids work the same way. Replace the marching band with electrons, all right? We're moving at the speed of physics. We're talking microseconds, super fast. And we actually have a specific protocol for that called PTP, Precision Time Protocol. Not NTP. Anyone knows NTP, Network Time Protocol? That's milliseconds. That's way too slow, man. We're talking super fast. We're using PTP. So electronic warfare ruins that, all right? What is electronic warfare? To not die in a war zone, I don't want to be hit by a missile or a drone. Those drones use GPS to coordinate their attacks. I talked to an F-35 pilot a couple of months ago, and they have a joke. They call it warheads on foreheads. They can drop a missile or a bomb within a 2-meter bubble of accuracy, which is a very small bubble, all right? Anyone that's old as dirt like me remember during the Iraq War when they were showing the videos of the Tomahawk cruise missiles going into the vents of buildings? It's really, really accurate, all right? We can GPS, a missile through a window, all right? So if the missile or the drone I'm launching at you, I know it uses GPS to find you. I pre-program the coordinates in it, right? If I can disrupt GPS, maybe I can make it miss. It's a thought, right? Why wouldn't I do that? So here's the problem. When I do that, it screws over my civilian infrastructure that also uses GPS to, say, keep the lights on and the power grid working. And that's what we are seeing. By the way, you're wondering, GPS, so weak. My dudes, it is so weak of a signal. These satellites are in medium Earth orbit, all right? They're 10,000 miles away from us, and you're talking about the literal collective power of 14.3 decibel milliwatts. It's a 50-watt light bulb 10,000 miles away. That's how, because it has to go through the stratosphere, the troposphere. It has to go all the way through this ancient building with steel, concrete, and girders to get to my phone with its antennas on it to be able to get actual GPS reception, all right? Plus, it has to find the satellites. Satellites actually have to be above me at any given time, right? So we're talking about an incredibly fragile, soft, weak GPS signal. I'll tell you what, after I got on this project, I'll never trust GPS ever again. I didn't really trust it to begin with, but I trust it a hell of a lot less now. So inside these substations, we have a bunch of computer stuff, right? And here was the problem, coming back to full circle to that dinner. And this is what the Ukrainians explained to me, now that I've explained all that to you. They said, Joe, normally what happens, satellites in orbit. We have this little hockey puck thing. It intercepts a signal, sends it to the substation. Substation timestamps that with the PMU, sends it to our data center so our guys in the massive control center know what the hell's going on. When shit hits the fan and we're being shot at, we have to jam ourselves because we don't want to see anyone get hurt or killed and see our stuff blown up because it's irreplaceable, right? Not even counting the human life cost we're talking about. This is actually a PCAP from that one of these incidents. You'll actually see synchronization lost. This is based off the IEEE standard, the 1588 standard, which is basically the GPS receiver going, I don't see shit, you're out of luck. Now here's the problem with that. All the power equipment in that substation does not know what to do when it loses GPS. It has no friggin' idea, all right? Iridium like atomic clock backups? Or rubidium, or like a cesium or rubidium like atomic clock? Yeah, we'll get to that. So the answer was, we definitely thought of that. So when the jamming happens, the SCADA equipment in the substation goes, I'm out, dogs, you're on your own. And until the jamming goes away, the dispatchers, those guys and gals in that command center, are flying blind. And it has and does cause blackouts. You have to understand what happens in a blackout. All right? Generators kick on, lights come on, you know, you get a panic. If you're stuck in an elevator, God help you, you got to pick the phone up and pray to God it works, call the fire department. All right, the whole city or the whole province loses power. There's air raid sirens going on. Everyone's in a bomb shelter. Who's coming to save you? All right? There's actually, my friends in Ukraine will send me pictures, I should have put it in here, of like, don't be in this elevator from 8 to midnight because there will be no power in this building and you will be trapped in this elevator for 4 hours because they have to ration power. I don't blame the ICS vendors who sell the power equipment. Nobody designs their shit to work in a war zone, all right? You think it works until you get shot at, and then you find out it doesn't work so great. So they told me this story, and actually I made the same suggestion this very handsome gentleman in the front said. I'm sitting at dinner, and I go, ah, shit, that sounds really bad, guys. Why don't you guys just go buy atomic clocks? Like cesium or rubidium atomic clocks, and just bolt them into your substations. I want to clarify, what I just suggested has never been done before. I don't know of any power company that's ever done it. They're also $30,000 to $40,000 a piece, all right? And I'm going to put them in a substation. They may get blown up by a missile. So I said that to one of the Ukrainians, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, thanks, dickhead. We didn't think of that. We just went to California and tried to get them to go do that, and they told us, no, you're going to cut me a check? I need about 100 of them. And very politely told me that. They didn't attack me, but they're like, oh, look at this rich fucking American over here with this atomic clocks just pouring out of his pockets. He literally said to me, tell me the supermarket in Kyiv where they're sold. I'll go buy some. I earned that. I earned that. Hey, he was spicy as shit. And I was like, I don't blame him because I just did some dumb American hand wave bullshit where I'm like, just spend a lot of money and make your problems go away, right? You know, they don't have that option because they have no money. They have no money. So I went back to my office about a week or two later. I talked to a lot of my friends, like Chris was drunk and all those other guys. And I said, man, have you guys heard of this jamming, knocking off power grid stuff? And they're like, nope, never heard of it. I'm like, yeah, me neither, man. And they all kind of said the same thing, actually. They're like, have they tried atomic clocks? I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, don't mention that to them. So I put a team together. I got back to Seckc, where I work, and I said, look, I don't have a good answer here, but whatever we do, if we find something either that Seckc makes or that another vendor makes, I work for a Fortune 50 company. I can find resources. Talos is a big-hearted organization. We know a lot of people. Maybe we can find the right resources to deploy. We got to try. But whatever we do, they're being shot at while we're sitting here spitballing over this. So let's just move fast, all right? Which was perfect's the enemy good enough, and you got to move fast because people's lives are in danger, all right? So I started spitballing through my vice president and my other manager. I got connected to the executive leadership team inside of Seckc, which is a rare feat. And I got redirected to some really small team of engineers inside of Texas. And they actually make industrialized switching and routing. Because, you know, Seckc, that's CISCO, we make route and switch equipment, right? And we actually make stuff that's industrialized. It's meant to go in factories and substations and stuff like that. So it's vibration and moisture resistant. Heat tolerances and cooling tolerances are a lot more strict. And it's just meant to go really kind of inhospitable places that electronics just don't like to go into, right? So they actually had a switch. And so I'm talking to these guys in Texas, and I go, can you guys get me atomic clocks? After I explain the problem to them, and they go, we think you're overthinking this, man. You probably don't need them. I think we got something else. And I said, no, you're not hearing me. I said atomic clocks. And the moral of this story is you should listen to experts. Looking at you, Robert Kennedy Jr. And I said, what do you mean we have something? And he goes, look, we make a switch. It's got a crystal oscillator in it. So a crystal oscillator, you pass a current through it. It vibrates at a very specific frequency. You can put a clock to it, and we do. Your alarm clocks in the hotel rooms are probably that. The ones in your dash. And that's why you can have like your oven is different from your microwave, which is different from your cell phone, which is different from your laptop, maybe on like, because maybe the crystal oscillators aren't in sync. They're also very temperature sensitive. So if it's really cold or if it's really hot. So we have these double oven insulated crystals. Takes about 30 minutes when it gets up to temperature. This thing is a metronome. Like, it's rock solid, and it's like you could kick it and it's going to be fine. And I said, yeah, but I mean, this isn't a temperature thing. This is armed conflict. This is war. And they went, well, we don't really know if it's going to work, but here's what we're going to do. We stood up and built our own electronic warfare lab in Texas, and for $100,000, you too can do this. So we took a GPN disciplined atomic clock, a PTP packet analyzer, some splitter, an oscilloscope. So we kind of made a homegrown radio frequency jammer that can do wide and narrow band, and we took our industrial Ethernet switch. And we took this switch, which can, by the way, hook into GPS antennas. It's meant to go into like substations, so it's got hooks up iRig A, iRig B, and all that stuff. And we said, we're going to throw a lot of radio frequency into this, and let's see what happens. And it fell over, and we started making some clock recovery algorithm changes into it. And I went, oh shit. I went, will this work? And the guys in Texas were like, yeah, we think this actually will work, but we probably should get this thing to Ukraine and test it because we don't know what it's going to do. Anything in a lab is bullshit until you do it in the field, guys. That is the rule, man. So like, I'm like, I need to get this thing to a war zone. And at the time, you know, Amazon Prime wasn't delivering there, so I didn't know what the hell to do. So let me just conceptually give you the solution. And I'm kind of giving the game away a little bit early, but I don't want to eat too much in the grifter's time if I haven't already. We made a bullshit sandwich for industrial power equipment to operate on. Our switches sit in between the device that intercepts the radio signal. It's called a Grandmaster clock, which would also be my rap name. And the PMU, the device that timestamps and measures the health of the power grid. We're invisible. We don't do anything. When we detect jamming, because we're sitting in between the satellite and the SCADA equipment, we go, nope. We're the satellite now. Look at me, the meme. I'm the captain now, right? I go we go to the power equipment and go, look, we're the satellite now. Don't listen to that fucking thing. It's lying to you. We're the satellites now. And it took some trial and error because we had to go to General Electric and go, how does your stuff work? Will you tell us proprietary information? And they did, actually. They were really nice to us. They understood. So shout out to GE. They're real ones, all right? So when the jamming goes away, we gracefully pass off communications back to the satellite, all right? The SCADA equipment does not know the difference, right? But since we also were synchronized with the satellite, and though our clock is not as good, but good enough for 2 to 4 hours, which is the average air raid duration in Ukraine, we are actually able to keep the grid synchronized. So, how do you mail something to a war zone? Well, I use the Air Force. So, you can tell this is from the previous administration because this is humanitarian aid and not brown people on a plane. If you zoom in, you can kind of see these blue boxes, and that's where the switches are. We got these delivered with humanitarian aid for their power grid. I never blindly mailed anything to a war zone before. It was a real leap of faith. We sent these to Ukraine, and then to Poland, and then from Poland they were literally smuggled into the country, and the Ukrainians intercepted them. Like I said, never underestimate a Ukrainian, not when war is on the line. And they are actually able to build a test lab with some spare power equipment. They literally had to rob Peter to pay Paul because all their spare equipment had been destroyed. They literally scrounged and found the last possible things they could find and built a little mini substation in one of their test facilities in Lviv. And after a lot of back and forth, we got it to work. It's a little tough to read on the PCAP, but it says time quality estimated maximum time error less than 100 nanoseconds. There is no satellite. We are the satellite now, using the meme, all right? Yeah. So, and then I worked with my company, and we got $1 million of switches donated. I call them the IE5000's Ukraine edition, donated to Ukraine with custom signed cryptographic firmware that you will find nowhere else in the world, which only 2 people in my company can even sign these things, by the way. So what started with just me in March ended up being about 40 people across the world, Department of Energy, United States Air Force, Ukrenergo, State Department, I think State Department, General Electric. Some of my friends on the down low at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory are really nice and gave me some. Fuck yeah. That team did it though, because when I went to them, I said, hey, look, I'm trying to save lives. Can you please help me? I never got a no. I only got yeses, and how can I help? All right? So here are my final thoughts. Lead with empathy. All right? I can't be good at my job if I don't pay attention to what's going on around me. That's being in cyber. I wish I could forget Citrix Bleed existed or a ransomware cartel hit a hospital or whatever, but I would really suck at my job. I have to be dialed in, all right? You have to unplug and take care of yourself. Protect your peace. But to be a good defender and stand up for people, you need to know what the hell is going on. When I was at dinner with those guys, I had no answers for them, all right? I had nothing for them, but I listened. I was present, and I went, yeah, that's not cool. Maybe we can do something to help you, all right? Tonight, tomorrow night, wherever you go in your life, you may find yourself in a similar situation. Someone's having a hard time. Maybe they're not in a war zone. I hope not. All right? Just being present and listening, stay the fuck off your phones, means everything to them. Because you may not have the answers, but you cared and you listened. And that is something, friends. Because that night, I just listened. And I said, maybe I can do something about it, maybe I can't. Turns out, we could. So being here is a privilege, all right? I'm in air conditioning. My ice hasn't melted yet in my whiskey. Everything is gravy, all right? Everything is gravy, all right? So just be thankful of the blessings that you got, all right? Because you got more than you think you do. By the way, update. As of June, we've given Ukraine 41 days of power. Over 1,000 hours of power. If it just worked for 5 minutes, it was still worth every damn dollar. All right, it took me 8 months from conception to product delivery to get them that stuff. That 5 minutes as a kid's childhood of getting to watch just more cartoons during an air raid where the sirens go off. Think of how many childhoods have been ruined, how many lives have been shattered for the dumbest reason ever, for this stupid war over there, all right? You can't put a monetary value on that. I can. I don't know how to. I'm not capable of doing that, all right? So, 41 days of power, which is a sad thing because I wish those were all in the trash right now when the war was over and my friends were not being shot at. But while we're there, I'm glad we could help. Thank you, friends.
Hey, actually, so we had a lot of people come up and ask, hey, you shut your mouth. Yeah, we had a lot of people ask questions. If anybody has some questions for Joe, why don't you come up here and we're going to bring him back out. and let him answer some questions up here. If anybody has questions, come on up. Listen, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, given that note, if you have a question, why don't you come up on stage? You can come around this corner here, and there's a little ramp, and you can come up here and ask Joe, meet him.
That was the first time I've cried at a Seckc talk.
Yeah, I've had some pretty emotional moments myself. What's up, man?
Quick question. So, GPS is one of the ways that you can receive timing from outer space. You've got GLONASS, you've got Galileo. Galileo, yep. And the Chinese even have Baidu, right? So, when they're doing GPS jamming or GNSS jamming, have you looked at like backups utilizing your enemy's timing because they're not going to mess with their own timing?
The answer is yeah, we did. You could not at gunpoint make a Ukrainian use GLONASS, Baidu, or any other. They don't trust them. And honestly, I don't blame them. Now, you're saying, could they use the signal?
It's that hacker mindset, right?
Yeah, it's a totally hacker mindset. And there may be some that do. It's a big country. I'm not in the war. I couldn't actually tell you that. We actually tried to see, well, what about Starlink? What about Iridium? What about other constellations that are in low Earth orbit that have a much stronger signal to Earth? And the answer ultimately was this. I don't control what's in outer space. So I can't control air interdiction, EW jamming, or these massive EW jamming trucks that can 100-kilometer radius where they can shut things down. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians, right?
Or even the U.S.
Or even the U.S., you're correct, absolutely. So I said, let's just forget the satellites. Like, they're not going to be down permanently, because here's a fun fact. When you jam somebody, you put a giant target on yourself because I'm emitting radiation, and we make missiles that find that stuff. So you do it tactically when it's important, but you don't leave it on 24/7. You can't do that. Or you could, but you're probably going to die. So we knew that it's a limited resource. So we just said, let's not worry about where a satellite is or is not, and let's just go fail-safe over to this, and we can give it back to the satellites when things have calmed down. And we looked at a lot of solutions. I looked at export. I swear to God, I tried to find someone at the NSA or somebody or at State Department that could get me an export compliance waiver for jamming resistant antennas. Couldn't find anybody. And I know a lot of people, and that's not a shot against them. I just couldn't find anybody. And so I just said, how many variables can I remove as fast as possible to where I can go, you know what, let's just not worry about, all right, it's like what do I have control over and what do I have influence over? Well, I don't have influence of how they conduct operations in Ukraine, but I do work at a massive hardware company, and we have control of many, many hardware devices, and maybe we can modify one of them to help, and we did.
Your company has sold stuff that's been to battlefield, so why not, right?
Yeah, basically. And honestly, like, yeah, I guess we kind of stuck to our lane and the things we know really well. We just had to improvise really fast. So, yeah, it's a good question, because we had all of these thoughts.
Yeah, I like the living off the land part. I'm going to keep talking because there's no one else here.
Yeah.
But I just like that mindset of living off the land, and part of that is utilizing your enemy's tools for your offensive. So whether it's you're able to take that 7.62 ammunition and throw it in your weapon system, to a degree, I see that same thing from an electronic warfare perspective of like utilizing their weapons against them.
Also, they have jamming resistant equipment on both sides of the war, so it may not necessarily give you a pass depending on what constellation. But even if they do, the Ukrainians would never use it. It's their prejudices, and frankly, I don't blame them. I guess I hear, but
It's jingoism.
your logic is sound.
Yeah, it's jingoism.
Yeah.
I'm okay with jingoism because, like, to a degree, that's what got a lot of people through wars. Is that nationality? Like, I really like focusing on, hey, my nationality is like my thing, and I don't want to use my enemy's tools at all. So that makes sense. The hacker mindset in me is like, hey, man, we could use that GPS or use whatever we clone as, because at least we'd have timing.
Yeah.
So,
Great. What's your name?
Eagle Eater.
Eagle Eater. Joe. Good to meet you, brother.
Yep. If you're at DEF CON, I'll see you around.
I'm totally DEF CON. Hopefully still employed. Anyone else?
By the way, I like the shirt.
Yes, 100%.
If you got questions, get up here.
And if not, go have a whiskey or a nice cold Coca-Cola. I think we're probably good. We can yeah. Oh yeah. What's up, Doc? So I've talked with MISO. I've talked with a lot of other folks. They're not happy about GPS. They know its fragility. Do yourself a favor. Go look up Newark Airport, Port of Miami. They had cigarette-powered GPS jammers because the truck drivers did not want to be tracked by UPS or FedEx when and where they were or how fast they were driving. And that was actually disrupting airport operations. And they couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. It took them a long time to figure it out. But these truck drivers literally went on eBay and bought like little mini GPS jammers, and it had collateral damage. That's how crappy and sensitive GPS is. By the way, you know who uses GPS the most outside of the power grid? Ag. Down to the inch, they use GPS to automate a lot of the farming of their fields. If you tell a farmer that the GPS signal is not receivable, their tractor might drive into a ditch. It would cost them significant financial damage because they down to just the soil temperature and the nitrogen in the soil is so carefully measured for maximum yield on crops that they really can't afford deviations, and so they're terrified of GPS going down. The further you dig into GPS, the more terrifying it really gets. But the reason we use it, it's really cheap. And unless Canada or Mexico starts jamming us, or I guess the errant truck driver, there's just not a financial incentive to push, I think, people to that. But I think attitudes are starting to change. I'm doing my best to change them, too, as well. Can I what? What do you mean? That's what you're talking about. It would be really challenging. There may be other solutions already in market. I know a lot about ag, but I'm not that deep. But that would be really cool if ag had some kind of anti-jamming thing on their tractor. How wild would that be? But it's possible. They also have something called pseudolights, which are very similar to what we did. They're poles you can plant in the ground. They can either repeat a GPS signal if it gets too weak or there's atmospheric interference. A solar flare could do it. It's really not that hard. And they can even do a little bit of similar to what we did, but they're called pseudolights, and they're strategically planted in certain really big farm fields, not necessarily smaller ones. But now I've hit a brick wall of my knowledge on what they use. But excellent question, and one that's definitely been discussed. Yeah. The answer was, will there ever be replacement for GPS? Not anytime soon. I hate to say it. You've got Starlink, Iridium. You've got some low Earth orbit that are really much more jamming resistant and they have atomic clocks too. They're great. I love them. It's just how much more will it cost me to be able to use it? And a lot of it's, if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. But even though it's like that, that massive GitHub project that's supported by one guy in Nebraska for the open source component of it, and if it kicks it away, the whole thing falls down. It's going to take something like that, I think, to go, wow, we should have gotten off this years ago. But unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. Unless you're in Ukraine, then you really know. So, hi, yes, ma'am. So this will be the last question, and then I'll give it over to this handsome gentleman to my left. Oh, do we? Oh, sweet. All right. So how was the jamming disrupting power grid operations? So if I can't timestamp my data, the equipment panics. And it's just the equipment doesn't know what to do. It has no idea. It's never operated without a satellite signal before. So it goes, well, shit, what do I do? And it goes, well, I guess I don't do anything. And it just kind of throws its hands up in the air and goes, nah. Wait for GPS to come back, which could be 4 hours. But power doesn't stop moving for that 4-hour duration. So the guys in the dispatch center are looking at a blank wall at this point. But people are still consuming power, power is still being generated, and they can't balance the seesaw effectively. Because keep in mind this. Let's say most missiles and drones, when they're launched in Russia, come from 3 places really and truly. Well, it used to be 4, it's more 3 now. Crimea, inside of Russia, or sometimes in the Black Sea through ships, right? And they always are going to track, obviously, east-west, right? So what you'll see, if you ever monitor the radio spectrum there, you'll see a series of GPS jamming go countrywide because their air raid siren's triggered and they have to turn on their jamming because they don't know if they're a target or not. So we're talking about the entire country being saturated more or less at the same time, if they think these missile tracks, so they're tracking them over radar, if they're going towards Kyiv or if they're going towards Odessa, they can kind of get a general idea where they're going, right? So you'll just see a steady curtain fall where they're like, all right, we got to turn on jamming. Maybe it hits it, maybe it doesn't. We can't risk it, all right? So we're talking about massive bubbles of just radio frequency interference, and a flipper zero probably, actually I need to test this, I own two. If I got near, say, give me a 1500 hertz blurp to knock over this GPS, it might do that. I don't know, it's just that sensitive. And so here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is if you lose your skate equipment, you don't have immediate blackouts. Right? It really doesn't. You're like, okay, for about 45 minutes we could be okay. All right? It's not awful, not great. Things probably aren't going to change that fast. It's when you start going to 45 plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, all right? Then the dominoes really start to tip over, and I can't make informed corrective actions to stop what would be a cascading effect of a bunch of equipment self-protecting itself, disconnecting from the power grid, and that's when you get blackouts or brownouts, usually blackouts. And that's typically what did happen. Not anymore now, though, at least from jamming. So check that one off. Did I kind of answer your question? It's a really complex thing that I have a limited amount of time to describe, so it's a lot of metaphor and the stupid shit I say in Alabama accents and stuff like that, so yeah. Anyone else? Outstanding. I'm gonna go get a drink. Love you guys. You're the best.
Hey, real quick. Sorry, Jim. I know I keep cutting you off. I don't want you to play any more
It's
music.
intentional, I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's have a real quick round of applause for Joe one more time. So I have an unexpected surprise. Sorry, Patrick. I just jumped in here real quick. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So we have multiple giveaways happening right here. So Cisco has apparently you guys have been giving your name to them all night. We're going to be drawing here. So the first name that we draw is going to go for the backpack. Okay. Okay. Carolina is an impartial. It's probably going to be Carolina's name. Be my guess. All right. It's a ripped up piece of paper. That's good. Tim Reed. Oh, yeah, here he is. All right. No. Yes. Yeah, actually, right. Yeah, we're going to need to scan your ID. That's good enough for me. All right, now we're giving away Yeti Cooler. We have Ty. Get up here, Ty. All right, Ty, you get all the names and social security numbers. That's the real winner tonight. It was the friends we met along the way. All right, and then I think Lena, you have a. Okay, I'm gonna give it to Patrick.
All right, Lena has donated, or Cisco has donated this Flipper Zero to Zayden, our youngest member. Everybody give a hand to Zayden.
Also, anybody here that knows how to use this super fun toy properly, please come to Zayden and show him a new trick with his new toy.
All right, we got Grifter coming in about 5 minutes. All right. We are ready for our next speaker. Who here has heard of Grifter? All right. Well, that's a good crowd. So for anybody who doesn't know Grifter, he was actually featured on one of the most recent Darknet Diaries. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It's one of the best stories I've ever heard. Seckc Goon, legendary Grifter. Here we go.
I know how to do that. I'm sorry. There's children present. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't help myself.
We can do it together. Get in there.
Yeah. Seckc, we're on the internet. Great. So we always make new speakers do a shot. We didn't make Joe do it because he was drinking a healthy pour of some Jack Daniels. But Grifter said he is a little bitch, and so we got him a baby bitch shot to do. It's a healthy pour, but it's basically what a sorority girl would order. So don't feel bad for him.
That's perfect. I don't really drink, so this could make me drunk. This is a hell of a shot, Kansas City.
Yay! Thank you for coming to Seckc. We appreciate you.
Let's see how that lands. All right. So thanks for having me out. First off, I haven't been to Seckc since I think it was 2018, 2019 was the last time I was here. So thank you for having me and having me up on stage. I have no ability to follow the talk that we just watched together. This is going to be incoherent, dumb rambling about nonsense. So just, tamper your expectations. I love you too. So who the hell am I? So I normally start out by saying, like, by day. So by day, I'm the Vice President of Defensive Services at Coalfire. But by night, I do a bunch of other stuff. And that other stuff is that I run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings, and I've been doing that for 23 years. I'm also one of the main organizers of DEF CON, the largest hacker convention in the world, and hopefully you're all familiar with DEF CON. I started and still participate in the RSA conference SOC as well. I've written some books. I speak at conferences all around the world, and that might sound braggadocious, but that's not the point of it. Those are the things that make my mama proud, right? Like, she's like, my baby, and that's great. But what it actually says is that, like, I love security. I have always loved security. It has been part of my life since I was just a wee child, and I assume that I will continue to love it. So when I talked to Bill and he said, oh, you should come out Seckc, you should speak. And I was like, what do you want me to speak on? And he's like, whatever you want. And I was like, yeah, but like what? And he's like, well, you just did like Darknet Diaries. Like, just talk about some of that stuff. And I'm like, but they probably listened to it. And he was like, yeah, just do it anyway. And I was like, all right, fine. So you're getting the live show. So the first half, I'll talk a little bit about me, how I got into the industry, my involvement with Black Hat and DEF CON. And then the latter half will be me talking about actually the Black Hat knock, like I said, which I've been running for over 20 years, and how that came about. So let's get into it. So also, I use ChatGPT to make a bunch of images, and come at me. I don't give a shit if you're angry about the water. I'm from Utah, where we have the Bluffdale NSA data center that uses 10.7 million gallons of water a month to listen to our phone calls. So if I want to make an adorable picture of me as a child, I'll fucking do it. So, adorable. So that's me. That's me. How did I get started, or why do I even have the name Grifter? Well, when I was a kid, like many of the nerds that are in this audience, I used to read the dictionary. I just liked reading the dictionary. I liked looking for cool words. That's my dog right there. I looked for cool words, and the word that I came across with Grifter, or the definition that I saw, it said, a person at a circus or carnival who runs freak shows or games of chance. And then the second one just said, commonly a con artist. And my 8-year-old brain was like, that's dope. And so I assumed that as my name for things like video games, right? Part of the Nintendo generation. So decided that's going to be my name, put it in on video games, and eventually when I moved into the online world, I started using it there as well. It is my name as much as, like, Bill called me Neil. It is probably more my name than Neil is my name. More people in the world know me as Grifter. My girlfriend calls me Grifter. She refuses to call me Neil. Like, she's just like talking to her mom, she'll be like, can you stop calling him Neil? Just call him Grifter. Like, it's weird for me. So I am Grifter. I started out getting on pirate bulletin board systems when I was a kid. My uncle was in tech, and this is the late 80s, so not everybody had a computer in their home. My parents got divorced when I was quite young, and my dad lived with his brother. I have ADHD, and quite severe, and in order to keep me still, he would just sit me in front of the computer, and that was the thing that drew my focus. And so as part of that Nintendo generation, I love video games, and he was like, we'll dial up this bulletin board system. You can go on here, and you can download games, these different games that you want. And I would take like a printout of the different titles and say, how long will this take me to download, right? And he'd like, see this number next to it? That's how many bytes it is. And then the transfer speed is this much, so that will take probably 6 hours. So that will take a day or whatever it is. 300 baud, baby. Yeah. So that's how I learned about, networking or file systems and things like that. We're just, how can I get this game? How long will it take me? It was a very selfish way of getting started. But what I loved about those BBSs at the time was that no one knew how old I was, right? They just knew me based on the content of my post. They didn't know they were talking to a 9, 10-year-old, 11-year-old. Eventually, someone on the bulletin board said, hey, based on your posts and stuff, I think you'd like this other BBS. And they gave me a number, and when I dialed up that number, it was a hacker bulletin board system, and the rest is history, right? I loved it. I read every file that was on there. I was tripping out. I was like, this is amazing. I even read the conspiracy stuff. It was like, the government is working with the aliens to do this and this and this, and I was like, they are! I was like, it was so good. For those of you who remember those days, it was like, how to make a bomb, how to break into a computer, aliens are among us, right? So it was good times. But I spent so much time just reading everything I could possibly find, learning about operating systems that in some cases I never touched, right? And the command structure and then the file systems. And in some cases, just reading programs, reading source code, and never actually getting it to work because I didn't have access to the systems to make them work. But it helped me learn. I became obsessed with it, right? So much so that I would go to school and I would get into a fight so that they would suspend me so I could go home and read books about computers, right? Eventually they caught on. They were like, he gets in a fight every other week. And it's like, yeah, because I don't want to be here because you're not teaching me the things that I want to learn. But I didn't have access to a computer all the time. I only had it on the weekend when I'd go to my dad's house. So where did I spend my time? On the phone system. So I like this because ChatGPT, if you notice the image on the right, gave me three hands. Yeah. But yeah, so 9X was my stomping ground of choice, the New York-New England exchange. And if you've watched movies like Hackers where they're, in the back of a van trying to grab a bunch of manuals and stuff like that, and, serial killer comes out and he's got the hard hat on and a butt set and all the whatever, that's not fiction. We did that. We jumped over fences, we ran into, the back of a van when it was parked somewhere, we stole some shit, and then we ran away, right? But I thought about I still have the manual I stole out of the back of a van. I still have the hard hat, and eventually I did buy a 9X payphone. I had spent years trying to collect the parts of one so I could build it myself since it hasn't been 9X for a very long time. And then one day on eBay for $400, a full, beautiful 9X payphone was for sale, and of course I snatched it up, and it was in perfect condition. And I asked the guy, where did you get this? And he's like, oh, it was decommissioned from an office building in Brooklyn, and it's been sitting in a warehouse for the last 20 years. And I was like, it is my sweet baby. I love it so much. And I got it home, and I hooked it up, and then I dropped a quarter in it, and it went beep, 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 beep. And any of the old phone freaks know that 1700, 2200 hertz or kilohertz tone mix, that is the sound of a quarter dropping into a payphone. I genuinely teared up when that sound came out of the phone. I didn't expect it was going to do it, and I was really, really happy. So I spent a lot of time exploring the phone system, trying to, get free phone calls, talk to people in different parts of the world on things like the 2600 voice bulletin board. DEF CON had a voice bridge you could get on and do all kinds of things, right? Just voicemail boxes where you'd trade login information or credit card numbers or different things for whatever. They had conference bridges we'd get on and just do prank phone calls. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, you'd be up with friends, on a party line, making prank phone calls. And I don't know, it was the 90s. We loved that shit. Jerky Boys. Do you guys remember Jerky Boys? Yeah. All right. So yeah, we love prank phone calls. We get on there and do that. And a quick side story there was I used to sell T-shirts at DEF CON. I'd sell them in the vendor area. and my ex-wife was selling the shirts, and I just happened to stop by, and I was sitting behind the table, and a guy came up and he said, like, whose shirt is this? Like, who made this? Like, why are you selling this? And she's like, oh, these are Grifter shirts. And he was like, Grifter? And he was like, where's he from? And she's like, oh, Utah. And he's like, oh, okay, not the same guy. And she's like, but he grew up in New York. And he's like, he grew up in New York. And he's like, wait, Grifter. And I was like, what's up, man? Like, as I was sitting back there, I was like, what's up? And he was like, I'm Blue Knight. And I was like, what? And we lost our minds. And we used to hang out on these, like, bridges together when we were 14 years old. And now, 12, 13 years later, we're meeting up at DEF CON for the first time. And it's like, that's what you look like? That's what you look like, right? So anyway, yeah, that for a lot of us who didn't have access to a computer at the time, the phone system is where we played. I know several friends who went on to work, for phone companies, which is interesting because that seems to be the way it goes, right? We start out playing, using those systems as our playground, and then now we're the people who are defending them against, other versions of us. But it's that's the love, is that finally you get access to the system that you coveted for so long. So I had a bit of a misspent youth. I grew up in a really poor area, part of Long Island on the South Shore. And I would say my initial time breaking into stuff was about exploration. It was about learning. It was about trying to figure out how things worked. But for me, it was also another thing. And I talked about this as well on the podcast, but for me, my way of traveling, like growing up super poor, I thought, well, I'm never gonna get to go other places, right? Like I'm here, I'm stuck here. It was the kind of town where people just grew up, you lived and died there, right? It wasn't, there wasn't an escape. So I thought, oh, I would love to go to Rome, so how do I go to Rome? Well, I'll just break into a computer there, right? So I'd go and try to find systems that were in different geographical areas or run by governments from the countries that I wanted to go to. And in my childhood brain, I figured, okay, well, if I do that, if I access that system, that means that the network, like the modem on that computer is flashing, the hard drive is spinning up, which means that I'm introducing light and heat into a geographic area that I'll never get to go to, right? So I can reach out and touch, physically affect that space, even if it's in a broom closet somewhere. For me, that's how I explored the world, and so that's what I did. So it was very much about exploration until it wasn't. I wasn't a good kid. I did a lot of physical crime, and it turned out that knowing how to use a computer meant that I could do other crime as well. If you want to hear details on it, you can go listen to episode 157 of Darknet Diaries, but I'll just quickly say, I basically did a lot of financial crime, like identity theft, like what we called carding at the time, but just, getting different credit cards, ordering things to abandoned houses so I could just later sell them, or eventually it led to me being able to obtain valid credit cards that I then sold to the mob. So, yeah. So if there's any the kids who are in the audience, if you want to get good, do crime. Yeah. It was a different time. Yeah, no, now you don't have to do that. If we wanted to learn a system, we had to go break into it. We had to break into the university that had those types of computers, or the government agency that did. Now you can just fire up a couple of VMs. We didn't have that option, so we just did it, right? And so don't do crime, do crime. Anyway, yeah, like I said, for more details, like go listen to the podcast. But I eventually did escape New York, and I escaped it in the way a lot of poor kids that come from less fortunate upbringing do, and that's by joining the military, right? Like our military is full of people with the same story that I have, which is I don't have another way out, and if I stay here, I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna end up in prison, so I'll just go into the military. So I went to the Air Force. Yeah, that's right, hoorah! So I went into the Air Force. I did my 4 years doing F-16, F-117 avionics. So we talked about the electronic countermeasures earlier. That was my baby. So yeah, I did that for a while. But one of the first things I did when I went into the military is I bought a computer. Right, as soon as I got to my permanent duty station, which is Hill Air Force Base, Utah. It's how I ended up out there. I went and signed up for a membership for the NCO Club, which is basically the on-base club. It's like where all the wives go once their husbands deploy to go meet the people who didn't. And so they were like, when you're signing up for a membership, they're like, would you also like to apply for a credit card? And I'm like, sure. I checked the box. And then they're like, you're approved for next to nothing. But it was enough money for me to go buy a computer, so I did that. I bought a computer with the little line of credit that I maxed out that card, and then immediately started breaking into shit again from an Air Force base. And I did that for probably, I don't know, like 7 or 8 months. And as I was doing it, I kept getting deeper and deeper, and I was spending like the hours that I wasn't at work on the flight line, working on the jets, like back in my dorm room, just throwing everything at everything, writing, malware, stealing tons of, stay with me, AOL accounts and trading them for different stuff, right? I used to have them like send, it was like, you'd go in and be like, oh, do you want to know what private, like it's just phishing basically, like do you want to know there's private chat rooms on AOL, and if you run this tool, we're doing a beta test right now, and you'll be able to see who's in those private chats, and everybody's like, I gotta know, and so they'd run your malware, and then you'd get all their account credentials sent to a Juno account is where I sent them. Remember Juno? Right, so I did that, and I was doing that for like 7 or 8 months, and then I was like, you're gonna go to federal prison. So I sold that computer to the guy who lived in the dorm below me, and I didn't touch a computer again for probably about 2 years, because I was just like, don't go to federal prison. It's also, I avoided going to DEF CON at the time. I avoided basically all contact with the hacker community while I was in. And I was 17, 18, 19 years old while this was going on. But as I was about to get out, when I was about to separate, I was like, I only know how to do 2 things, right? I know how to fix an F-16 or break into computers. And I knew I didn't want to work on F-16s, right? So I was like, yeah, I don't want these. Jets are pigs. Like if you had a car that broke every time you drove it, that's a fighter jet. That's all of our fighter jets. You think the F-35 is better? It's not, okay? Pilots take it out, they go, whee! And you're like, sir, that breaks things, right? And so then they come back and they're like, I broke it, person who has a high school diploma. And you're like, okay, person with a college degree, I'll fix that for you. And so then we'd fix it, we send them back out. But I knew I didn't want that to be my life. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go back to breaking into stuff, but this time I'll do it like for a living. I'll let the company know I'm coming. And so I started going to the local security meetups. Sorry, 1 second, there's a camera. Okay, yeah, so, what would Dual D do? No closer coming off of here. With this amount of light, it would reflect immediately back at you. You'd all be blinded. I am an avid indoorsman. I don't let the sun touch me. Like, people are like, dude, how are you 46 years old? And I'm like, I moisturize every day, and I don't let the sun touch me. That's it. So anyway, I was like, time to get back in contact with the hacker community if this is what I'm going to make my career. So I started going to the local 2600 meetings in Salt Lake, and eventually the crew that was there said, we're going to DEF CON. And I'd known about DEF CON from the start of DEF CON, but I couldn't afford to go, and my parents were never going to let me get on a plane from New York and fly to Vegas anyway. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we road trip to DEF CON, and that was a great time. We put together like a wireless network that we, from vehicle to vehicle, like an ad hoc wireless network, and then we set up an IRC server and we chatted to each other from car to car. Like we were like, what up? Like it was the dumbest shit ever, but it was great, right? That is the spirit of like, you know, hackers and DEF CON, and yeah. My first DEF CON was DEF CON 8, so yeah, this year is DEF CON 33, so we are old, we are old. But yeah, so we headed off, and we went to DEF CON. And I knew from the time that I first experienced DEF CON that I would go to DEF CON every year for the rest of my days. I was like, these are my people. You hear people often describe the hacker community as a family. I genuinely felt like that. I still feel that way now. And I know people say it's a cliche or it's all whatever. False. Some of the people who I have met through DEF CON, some of whom are in this room, I love you, Bill. I do consider family. They're closer to me than some of my actual family, right? So the hacker community is the family that I chose, and they chose me in return. And so I knew, I was like, year after year, I'm gonna head back to this ridiculous conference. And it let me meet people who inspired me to be better, right? To learn more things. And I've been very lucky that with my involvement in DEF CON and Black Hat, that I've got to sit in a room and listen to the experts, the smartest people in the industry, get up on stage and talk about the cool things that they're doing. And while I'm sitting there and the stuff is just making a rushing sound over my head because I don't know what the hell the speaker is talking about, I'm like, time to up your game, bitch, right? Like, I'm like, I gotta buy a book. I don't know half of the words he just said. So that's the thing that you can take away from going to a conference where even if you don't understand what it is that the person's talking about, that's not them trying to make you feel dumb. That's them asking you to level up your game. So if you didn't understand something that Joe was talking about, then level up. If you go and go to a conference and you're like, I just don't get it, level up. Buy the book, read it, spend some time online, figure it out. If I went to a conference and I heard somebody say a word or use a term or talk about a technology that I didn't know and I heard it 2 or 3 times, then I'm like, you absolutely have to learn that. So leveling up means like staying curious, right? You've got to tell yourself, like, I'm not done. You don't reach a certain point and go, well, I know enough. Like, you never know enough. Just keep growing. I used to compete in a contest that a guy named Lost, if any of you are familiar with Lost, yeah. Lost used to put on a contest called the Mystery Challenge. So the Mystery Challenge is, in my mind, it was one of the purest hacker contests that existed. And it's because it had every aspect of the hacker culture in it. You had to read schematics and put together circuits. So you had your, electronics aspect of it. You had to pick locks. There was phone freaking stuff built into it. It was crypto and puzzles and codes and different things. And I absolutely loved it. It was wild. But there was a year, the first year I competed in it, actually Joe Grand, who came out and talked to you guys last month. Joe and I were on a team together with a couple other folks, and we took 3rd place because we overthought the last problem of the challenge. And I was like, man, I love this thing. We should do it again next year. And then when the next year came around, I had learned some things I hadn't the previous year, and I did really well in the challenge. I'd gotten to a point where I was pretty far ahead of the other teams and the couple of guys that I was working with. But we were stuck because we hit a point where he handed us this box and it was covered in locks, and I couldn't pick locks. I didn't know how to pick locks at the time. And I was like, shit, well, now what? And so I traded some information to another team so that they could pick the locks that were on this box for me. And I was like, it's fine. It'll work out in the end. And then They tried to pick the locks, and they spent a couple hours on it. Like, we're in the middle of the night where, like, we've got this box because you couldn't tip it over. Like, it was really, they had like an accelerometer in it. If you moved it too much, it would yell at you, and it was like, you tilted this 3 times, 2 more, and it will lock. Like, you're like, damn it. But they couldn't get the locks off. And so I gave them information, and in the end, they took a grinder and cut the locks off of it. And I'm like, I could have done that, right? Like, I could have done that. But in the end, at the end of the conference, I did win. So I won. I came in first place with my team. Woo, yay, woo. And we got a black badge. If you're not familiar with the black badge, if you win a contest of significant difficulty at DEF CON, you get a black badge. It means you get entry to DEF CON for life. So I got a black badge, but it was tainted, right? Because I was mad at myself for not knowing something. So I was like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to get in a position where I have to trade information to another team to get them to do something for a skill that I don't have that's not happening. So I went home. I ordered a bunch of stuff online. I spent about $400 on lock picks, and then I went and bought basically every lock at Home Depot. And I spent the next year sitting on my couch watching TV picking locks. And when the next year came around and we competed in the mystery challenge, we got to the point where we got the box, and we put it down, and there were 3 locks on it, and I went, boom, boom, boom. I mean, literally, it took probably, I would say, a minute to get all 3 of the locks off. And I was like, yeah, and I was like, that's right, bitch. Right, and the guys on my team were like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, I have spent a year preparing for this. They're like, holy shit, dude. But it made me level up, right? It made me learn a skill that I didn't have, and it's become an incredibly, incredibly useful skill. If you can't pick locks, go learn to pick locks. It's not that hard. They are just puzzles. They're in the back, apparently. So go and learn how to pick a lock. It works out pretty well. When my youngest child, who is 11 now, was about 1.5, 2, he locked himself in the car when we were on a camping trip, and we were in the middle of nowhere, literally an hour into the wilderness. And my ex-wife came in and she woke me up and she was like, do you have your lock picks? I'm like, that is a silly question. Of course I do. Because they are in my pocket right now. And I was like, why? And she's like, Colton locked himself in the car. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I was able to unlock the car and get him out of the car without having to smash the window, which was her initial reaction. She was like, we're gonna have to throw a log through the windshield. And I'm like, we're gonna scar this child for life. Give me a few minutes, right? And it took a couple of minutes, but I got him out of the car, right? So we won the contest again the next year. Then it started making people mad. And here's another lesson in here. Sometimes people will be mad at you for your success. Fuck those people. So people started to say things like, oh, Grifter's cheating, he's not doing the challenges himself, what's the other people on his team? Haters gonna hate. And so I was like, you know what? I don't need the hate. I'm not gonna do the contest again next year. I said to myself, it's all right. I've got 2 black badges. I have nothing to prove to anybody. And then Lost showed up at Black Hat and he was like, hey, we did the pre-quals and you didn't enter. And I was like, yeah, I'm not playing this year. He's like, no, like I made challenges specifically to fuck with you. And I was like, well, I'm tired of the hate and people say this and blah, blah, blah. And he spent probably 2.5 days like working on me, please play the challenge, please do the challenge. And I'm like, I didn't do the pre-quals. He's like, I saved a team slot for you. I have a slot for you if you want to do it. And you were supposed to have a team of 5 or more players. And I was like, fine, I'll do it if I can compete alone. And he was like, done. And I was like, all right. And then I won again. That's right. The second place team had 16 people on it. Fuck those guys. Right, actually, no, I love those guys. They're friends. I actually met really cool people competing in the contest, and I do love them and spend a lot of time hanging out with them. At the time, they hated me, but sometimes friendships are born of hatred. So even if somebody is telling you like they're getting mad at you for your success, just keep going. It's not about them. It's not about how they feel about you. It's about how you feel about you. It's about how the skills that you develop and what you can do with them later, whether that means winning a contest at DEF CON so you can get free entry for life or getting your kid out of the car. So, all right. Another thing, the gospel according to Grifter. One of the things, when Bill said to me, like, hey, come talk, he's like, he's like, tell the youngins, like, how to, get ahead in their careers or how to start out or whatever. And for me, one of the things I've always done is just said yes, and then I figure it out later, right? So when somebody comes and says, hey, do you want to do this thing? And I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. I just go, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that. Why not? Right? Yeah, speak at Seckc. What do you want me to talk about? Fuck it, we'll do it live. And so yeah, I've always just said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. Okay. At one time, it was a friend saying to me, we should try to speak at DEF CON, right? This was going into DEF CON 10, and I was like, I don't speak in public. That sounds horrifying. Sure, why not? We'll figure it out later. The only on-stage experience I had had up to that point was in high school. I competed in an electronics challenge thing that took us to state. I was on the top 3 teams so we had to do our challenges up on stage in front of thousands of other kids from high schools all over New York. And when it was time to get up on that stage, I went into the bathroom and vomited, right? And then it was, want to speak at DEF CON? Sure, maybe this time I'll shit myself. But I did it, right? I was just like, fine, I'll do it. And again, it's just about going, yeah, why not? Sure, what could possibly go wrong? Even if it goes completely sideways, in the moment, it might suck, but it's gonna make for a hell of a classic anecdote later. So just do it, just do it. Fall flat on your freaking face if that's what it takes, but just say, sure, I'll try, why not? Another way that I did that was kind of accidental. I am what I term a high-functioning introvert. This is not my natural habitat. My natural habitat is home, like in front of a screen, chilling, right? I said I'm an avid indoorsman. I'm not big on like going to big events or social things, but you do have to kind of get out of your shell sometimes. So even if something's not making you uncomfortable, then you're not pushing yourself, right? So at an early Black Hat show, we'd done the show for the day. There was what they called the gala reception at night. It meant that there was going to be drinks and people standing around talking about stuff, and I was just tired. I didn't want to go, but I forced I literally have like conversations with myself, like internal battles where I'm like, go downstairs. I'm like, go downstairs. But I don't want to. Go downstairs. I'd really rather not. Go downstairs. And so I did. And I happened to walk into where the event was being held, which was just in a bar in the hotel. And I walked into the doors, and as I'm walking, I hear a couple of guys talking about a book that I had recently read, a cybersecurity book, which none of us called it at the time, not cybersecurity. We remember how much we hated when like the government adopted the word cyber, and we were like, God, forget, yeah. It was like, damn it. So it was a cybersecurity book, and I, as I was walking by, I heard it, and I just turned, and I was like, that book sucks. Really good at the social stuff, Grifter. And I was like, oh, that book sucks. And the guy was like, why does it suck? And we talked about it, and then he was like, oh, have you read this? And I was like, yeah, I read that one. That one's good. Well, what makes that one good and that one suck? Well, the structure of this and blah, blah, blah. And he's talking about technologies that we're probably going to see for the next 5 years, where the other guy was talking about blah, blah, blah. And we talked for like 45 minutes, and I was just shredding all these other books because, again, no social graces. And then I was like, well, I should probably go wander around and talk to other people. It was really nice talking to you guys. And one of the guys goes, yeah, man, it was really great talking to you. Let me give you my card. Keep in touch. And he hands me his card, and I look at it, and it says, Andrew Williams, Vice President, Singress Publishing, which means that I had just ripped apart the books of this publishing company to the man who ran the security division. And I was like, oh, and he was like, oh, and we're, And then he said, look, man, I really appreciate the candid feedback. Would it be cool if you send me your address? I'll send you, anytime we get a new security book out, I'll send it to you. You tell me what you think about it. Give me your honest opinion. I really need that kind of feedback. Absolutely, let's do that. A couple of weeks later, a couple boxes show up at my house. It's every security book that publisher's ever published. And then as new books came out, I'd get an envelope in the mail with a book in it, and I'd read the book, and I'd tell him, like, that one sucked, this one was good, here's what I felt was missing, blah, blah, blah. If you ever do a second edition, da-da-da-da. And then he'd start asking me, well, what do you think we should be publishing? What's missing? What's missing from our library? What technologies am I not looking at? And I'd be like, well, you should talk about this, or you should do this. Because again, sitting in a conference going, I don't understand this. And if I don't understand it and the book doesn't exist, you should write that book. And he'd go find somebody, and 9 months later, the book would come out. And that was cool. I felt like I was having an impact on like what was ending up on the shelves at Barnes & Noble. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And then one day I went to him and said, oh, you should do a book like this. And it was about like strike back techniques, which is basically, if you're getting hacked, eventually you get tired of getting poked in the chest and you go, come at me, right? Which as a New Yorker felt natural to me. Like I was like, if somebody keeps poking you in the chest, knock their teeth out, right? Like, and so I was like, why can't we do that from a technological approach? And that book really pissed people off. But he said to me, yeah, you're right. That does sound like a good book. We should do that. And I said, we? And he was like, yeah, we. I've been sending you free books for a couple of years now. It's about time you make me some money. And I said, I don't know how to write a book. He's like, that's what we have editors for. He's like, so put together a group of friends that you want to write a book with, and we'll do it together, right? And so I did. So I wrote a book with Bruce Potter, who's a good friend, with Dan Kaminsky, with Chris Hurley, with Pyro, like, and we put this book out, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know, but I said yes, right? So say yes. You never know what kind of cool stuff's going to come out of it. So I said yes, right? So what else did I say yes to? When I was about, I think, 22, 23 years old, I was one of the administrators on the DEF CON forums with a guy named Nulltone, and I was bitching on the forums about how expensive Black Hat was. I was just like, it's too expensive for somebody like me who at the time was self-employed, going out and doing red team stuff, pen testing. I was like, it's just too expensive. I can't drop a couple $1,000 plus travel or whatever. They should have some kind of student discount or a scholarship program or something like that. And another guy, Russ Rogers, just said, hey, I can introduce you to someone you can probably volunteer. So I ended up going out and volunteering at a Windows show for them. That was their show in Seattle. And it was great. Like, I had a great time. And they went off to go do their show in Amsterdam a couple months later. And I wasn't helping with the Amsterdam show, but I knew I was going to be out at the Vegas show to volunteer. So the person who handled the network stuff for them at the time, he gathered together all the network equipment, because at Black Hat we replace everything. We replace every router, every switch, every firewall, every access point with our own gear. We don't use the infrastructure of the venue that we're at. So this guy packed up all the gear, palleted it up, put it on the loading dock at the Black Hat office, and then they flew off to Amsterdam. The only problem is he never scheduled somebody to come pick up that gear. And so it stayed on the loading dock in Seattle, and they flew off to Amsterdam without any gear, right? So he didn't do that job anymore. And then Dark Tangent, Jeff Moss, called me up, and he was like, hey man, we really liked you, like, at the Windows show. Would you be interested in running the network for us? You can bring a team of people with you. You know, we'll pay you. Obviously, we'll pay for your flight, hotel, or whatever. And I was like, this keeps sounding better and better. Keep talking, right? And so I was like, great. And I went to two of my friends and I said, hey, you guys want to go run the Black Hat network? Yes, I said two of my friends to run the network for Black Hat. And they were like, yeah, that sounds fun. And off we went to Vegas and we ran the network for Black Hat, that first US show. Now, this is the feedback I got from Jeff, was he said, look, man, the network is mostly there as a, like, it's fine if it's up or not. It's there for like email and stuff like that. Any of the training classes, they just bring their own on-site servers. And we run Cat 5 all over the classroom to different switches and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, so it doesn't matter. Just try to do the best that you can, you know, keeping it up, phrasing. And then we went, and the network did stay up the entire show except for 15 minutes. We used to use these old Cisco access points for the gray beards in the room. If you remember the ones that you'd stick the Orinoco gold cards in, and then you'd put the antenna in it and like tape it to a wall. Like, so we had those, and a Cisco 2600 router, and a couple of Linksys, like off-the-shelf, like commercial switches, and that's how we ran the network at Black Hat. And at one point, the network goes down, we get it back up, and I go around to the training classes. There were only 15 of them at the time. And I go around and say, like, hey, sorry about that outage, blah, 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 you know, and just checking on them. And before I could say anything, when I walked into one classroom, a guy went, hey, the network went out. And I was like, yeah, I apologize for that. We got it back up now or whatever. And he's like, that was me. And I was like, what? And he's like, we got a 0 day for those Cisco access points you got. And I demoed for the class. And I was like, thanks, Greg. It was Greg Hoagland, if any of you know Greg, and he took the network down, and otherwise it would have had 100% uptime. I'm not bitter or anything. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Settle down, right? So I really I enjoyed the experience, right? And so I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm going to bring more people next time. And like I said, at that show we had there's 1,500 attendees and 15 training classes. At the show we're approaching now for this year, I'm sure it will mirror what we had last year. The US show is 25,000 attendees and 96 training classes, right? So a little bit of growth, right? Phrasing again. And then, yeah, so the team of two has turned into this. So this is the team from this past show. So it is not something that it's like, oh, Grifter runs the Black Hat Knock. No. This is who runs the Black Hat Knock. It's an extensive crew of miscreants, riffraff. Bill, you know, you were on the team for several years. So they're like, let's go take a picture in front of the Black Hat logo. Why? Where is it? Yeah. But yeah, so this is the team, right? So now I'm going to talk about what it's like to run that network. So the Black Hat network is often billed as one of the most hostile networks in the world. And the way that I describe it to people is in that way. But what I say is, it is one of the most hostile networks in the world if you're looking at it just based on traffic alone. But the reality is, most of that bad traffic is good traffic. It just looks bad, right? It's the Jessica Rabbit of traffic. It's just drawn that way. So that's a training class happening, and somebody is doing a lab, and it looks like, oh, somebody's firing an exploit at some server on the internet, or somebody's doing this thing, or, oh, this computer in one classroom is attacking another computer, right? So it's somebody doing a demo up on stage, showing off a tool and research that they've been working on for the last 2 years, and now they've got their 45 minutes in the spotlight, and they're showing it off, and they're excited about it. And unfortunately, if we were to block that traffic, it would crush their. We would be the demo gods, smiting them, right? And we don't want to be that. So we have to let most of that go. So while the traffic does look incredibly hostile, it's a challenge to figure out what's hostile, what's the bad, and what's the good bad. And so where if you're on your network back at your organization, you are combing through all that data, I would characterize that as looking for a needle in a haystack, right? What's bad here? At Black Hat, we are looking for a needle in a needle stack. So it's an incredibly difficult challenge. It's why it takes a crew this big. It's why we have a ridiculous setup like this. So this is what the knock looks like when we're in Las Vegas. It is a fishbowl that allows people to come in and stare at us. And we only made that public a few years ago because Informa, the company that owns Black Hat, would come into the knock and they'd say, man, it's cool in here. Like, you have music playing, there's LED lights everywhere, there's a stuffed gorilla in the corner and an inflatable sheep. There's old hacker movies, like projected up onto the wall, that kind of stuff. They're like, you should really let us show this off. And I was like, no, right? I was like, absolutely not. But after years of the masking, finally I was like, okay, I'll do it if you build a wall between us and the attendees, because we don't want people yanking on a cable or throwing a USB drive somewhere or whatever. Like, we just don't need those kind of distractions. And they said, fine, we'll do it. And that's how they ended up with this. They agreed to everything. I was like, we're still going to have the lights low. We're still going to have hacker movies playing. We're still going to have music on. We're still going to be sleeping on the floor, all of those things. And the only thing that they were like, was the sleeping on the floor. So they built us a little room off to the side. You can see the door of it right there. And that's just got a few couches in it. So we run really long hours in the knock. And sometimes there have been, and it hasn't happened in a couple of years, knock on wood, it's approaching fast. I will be in Vegas on the 29th, so a few weeks from now to set up. But we'd work 36 hours straight, right? Because the network has to be up. It has to be up for the training class to start on Saturday morning, because people have paid $5,000 a piece, and there are thousands of people who are expecting to start. And if the network's not running, those thousands of people who paid $5,000 a piece are livid, and the calls never stop coming, right? So we'll sleep in there as well. But we don't do it with a Cisco 2600 router anymore, and we don't do it with a couple of Linksys switches. Now we have partners that come in and help us. So probably at this point, it's got to be like 8 years ago or 9 years ago. I was talking to Bart Stumper, who is my partner in crime on the knock, and I just said, man, this doesn't scale. Like, we're dying. Like, we rolled our own on everything. Everything was open source hardware, right? So we had PF running on Seckc boxes we deployed to classrooms. We had scripts that were running just to tell us if something was like alive in the network somewhere, and it didn't scale. And we were taping down cables in every room. It was brutal. And so I was like, what if we go down to the expo hall and we just say to them, like, hey, we're the guys from the knock. Would you be interested in letting us use your equipment? And if you do, we'll put your logo in the program, and we'll say you provide the access points for Black Hat, or you provide, the core infrastructure for it, or mobile device management, or whatever the thing is that we needed. And he's like, yeah, let's go see. So we went down to the expo floor. We walked up to the first vendor that we were interested in working with, and we said, hi, we're the guys from the knock. Here's what we'd like to do. And they were like, yes. Like, when? Now? Like, do you need stuff now? Because I'll get stuff. And we're like, wait, what? And we're like, no, like next year. And they're like, do you need people too? We'll send our best people so our stuff looks really good. And we're like, wait, we're getting people and stuff? And I looked at Bart and I was like, let's go shopping, right? And we just walked around the expo floor going like, hey, we're the guys from the knock, want to give us free shit? And they were like, hell yeah, we want to give you free shit. And we're like, give it to us. Give us free shit. And they were like, here it is. And so we get pallets of gear that are delivered to us, licenses worth millions of dollars, stuff that comes in, they're just like, take it, take it. So these are partners. They don't pay. They don't sponsor their way into the Black Hat knock. They are what we believe are the best solutions for the things that we're trying to do. If you had an unlimited budget and you were saying, I want to build the best SOC/knock that I can possibly build, these are the logos that you would work with. Like, that is our opinion, and we have battle-tested the shit out of that. Like, when we put other vendors in place, they tip over. And we've been working with this crew here for years now, and so far it's been serving us really well. It doesn't guarantee them to be in there every year. Every year they earn their spot. And if for some reason the network throws something at it that just knocks it offline, we can't use that gear again. We have to find a replacement. And so there are times when we'll bring in other partners. They get a little bit of time, and then we kick them to the curb because we're like, that's not going to work for us. We're not going to use you. Sorry. We will test them. What we do is a cycle of, if we're going to put something new in place or we're going to test something new out, we bring them to the London show in December. We see how it stood up. We tweak things for the Asia show, which normally takes place in like April. Make sure everything's good there, and then we roll it out at the US for the big guns, right? For everything that you guys throw at it when you show up there. Hacker Summer Camp is interesting. The venue, right? So MGM owns Mandalay Bay. We have a call 2 calls, the start of the day, the end of the day, with all of the different security teams from all over the Strip. So even though they're competitors the rest of the year, when we all descend on Vegas later this summer, they become really close. And they all start sharing, here's what I saw, this is what's happening, blah, 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 right? So yeah, it's quite the challenge. This is what we brought this past year for the US show. So for 2024, this is awkward. So you see this one has logos on here. So we're not using NetWitness this year. I actually used to work for NetWitness. They just didn't innovate like their stuff. It was like the same dashboards for like years going on. Detections weren't where they needed to be, that kind of stuff. And we were like, sorry, we got to part ways. We tell people that we're using the best stuff, and if it's not the best, our commitment when we put that logo up there is that you are the best solution for what you do, and you're just not. So that's brutal, but whatever. And then we also, during COVID, we started streaming things on Twitch. So if you want to watch what we're doing in the knock at any show, anytime there's a Black Hat show going on, you can see us in there setting up throughout the day. We'll talk to people in the chat. We like this quote here. It says, "What are they doing in that room?" And then someone says, "Their best." And they were like, "Their best of what?" "Cyber." I love it. It's such a good little exchange there in the chat. So yeah, so you can watch it there. I mentioned I was a VP at the company I'm at now, which means I love a dashboard. Give me colorful dashboards. Tell me what I need to know. Give me a stoplight. That's great. I used to be cool. I used to do cool shit. Anyway. So we have a lot of different dashboards that tell us stuff. The one that you see that's moving over there, that's called OIP. What OIP is, it's an open source project that some students at Utah State University put together, and it's just the most active hosts on the network. Green is TCP, red is UDP, ICMP is white, and if like somebody's scanning, you see ICMP, it looks like fireworks. Like you see it gets thicker, that just means that there's more traffic being sent, so we'll see a whole bunch of traffic start going between a couple of hosts, and we'll be like, what is that? We'll turn to Corelight and say, hey, IP address this to this. Can you take a look at that and see what that activity is, right? If it looks like an outlier or something anomalous. So even though it is pew, 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 it's actually useful. So yeah, lots of pretty dashboards. Don't need to talk about it. They are getting shinier. I mean, look at that. So shiny. Yeah, it looks very cool. But I left these in here for things like this. So this is the amount of encrypted versus unencrypted traffic on the Black Hat network. So about 74% of the traffic is encrypted, 26% not. We started tracking that a little over a decade ago, and it was at like 50%. And then year over year, it would go up about 5%, and then it's settled in now where it's at 75 to 80, and that's true in both the US and Europe. The only one that's different is Asia, who even when we started tracking the stats 10 years ago, they were at 90%. And I talked to some locals there, and I was like, why? You guys can encrypt everything. Like, what's up with that? And a guy was like, oh, that's because like if you say something bad about your government, you're fine, but if we do, we disappear. And I was like, that shit got dark. That's the realest answer I've ever heard, but okay. So Asia seems to still hover in about the 90% range. And I mentioned that we let everything fly, right? We have to go through and look for the things that are actually bad, and we do that through threat hunting. Most of the people that you saw on that screen that said the team are threat hunters from the different partners that we have, as well as a group of folks that I bring in myself who are basically my friends. We bring in 16 of our closest friends who take their PTO to come and help us run the network because they're sadists. But while we're looking through all that traffic, what you see here is in the upper left, it says that throughout the course of the show, so this is about on noon on the Thursday of the show, so the last day of the show is when we captured this screenshot, we saw 2.65 million threats that were alerted on, right? 2.65 million for about a week's worth of traffic. We blocked 241, right? 2.65 million, we blocked 241. So that's our challenge, is in a sea of 2.65 million to find the 241 and hope there wasn't 242, right? So that's the challenge. but it's a hell of a challenge. It's really fun to do. I left this one in here from last year as well. These are just the top AI applications. So you'll see ChatGPT is actually number 2 to one called Notion AI, but Notion does this thing where like basically you can set your phone out, turn on the app, and it will take notes while you're in a meeting. And so people were using that in training classes and sessions. They just leave their phone out and it was doing like transcribing notes for them, which is kind of cool. And then the top social apps, for some reason, Facebook was number 1. And I was like, you bunch of boomers. Like everybody's out there being like, hi, Grandma. I'm over here to the Black Hat having a good old time. Had me a cold sarsaparilla earlier today. Like, I'm like, what in the hell? But, you know, I don't know. It's something. So I mostly talked about this, so I'll run through it really fast. But our goals throughout the course of the show have evolved. When we started out, again, the network was down 50% of the time, so the real goal was stability. It wasn't security. It was just, can we keep this freaking network up long enough to have to worry about securing it? So it was stability. Then it moved to security, and then we were like, we've got to segment these idiots from one another, right? There was no segmentation up to that point. It was just flat. Everybody could see everyone, which meant that like the red team class could see the blue team class, and they were like, get them, right? Like literally, they would learn some new shit, and they'd be like, attack the class next door, a bunch of policy nerds, right? Like it was bedlam. And so we were like, okay, host isolation, put everybody on different VLAN. Like we gotta separate these for their own safety, separate them from one another. Then we started doing malware sandboxing with Cisco's Threat Grid, which they now call something else. What's what? Still Threat Grid apparently, right? So Cisco Threat Grid. Basically, if any type of executable, a DLL, PDFs, whatever, anything that could have malware in it, we'd throw it into Threat Grid, we'd open it up, we'd play with it, see what it would do, right? And that led to some really interesting things. I'll give you a quick story. At one point, I'm watching the screen and I'm seeing all the different, because as you're looking at Threat Grid, you can see it popping up, all the different instances, and I see some files go by that looked sensitive, and I was like, that's weird, what was that? Pull that one back for me, tell me what that is. And they pull it up, and it's like, Wells Fargo, right? And I was like, huh. And I go, all right, show me all traffic from that user in the last hour, right? And they come back, they pull out all the files, we start going through them, and all in the clear were highly sensitive financial documents, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. And now I don't have the bandwidth to go from class to class telling everybody, hey, you're sending clear text credentials, or you're sending clear text files, or your machine is beaconing out to known command and control servers, or it looks like you're doing crypto mining on your laptop. Do you know that? I don't have the bandwidth to do it like I used to be able to do. I used to go to every class. But this was egregious enough that I was like, fine, I'm going to go to the class. I walk down there, and I'm like, can I speak to so-and-so? Because I knew his name, because I read all his shit. So I was like, can I speak to so-and-so? And they're like, yeah, and they grab him, and I come back to the back of the class because I'm not going to pants him in front of everybody. I was like, can you come back here so I can talk to you? And I was like, hey, man, you're sending a lot of really sensitive files out across the network in the clear. And he was like, no, I'm not, which is always what happens. I've been in cybersecurity for 15 years. I know what I'm doing. And you're like, this is how much is left on your mortgage. And he was like, fuck. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, no. He was like, hold on, I'll show you. And he goes and gets his laptop, and he comes back, and he's pointing at the system tray, and he's like, look at the green lock, you know? And I'm like, that's great, man. This is what's left on your mortgage. I don't know what to tell you. You think you're connected, but you're not. And in the postmortem, it turns out he just had split tunneling misconfigured, and he was sending shit out. But I said, why would you do this? Why would you send all of these documents from Black Hat to anywhere? You're on the Black Hat wireless network. And he was like, my kid's going to university in the fall, and I had to get the stuff in for financial aid. And I was like, okay, so that also means that the university's file server that you're sending them, posting to, is not using TLS, right? So we're like, great. Now I have to contact you, and that's what we do. We will reach out to the university, and we're like, hey, we're the guys, we do this, blah, blah, blah. By the way, this isn't secure. You have all these people sending us stuff. And we follow up with them to try to make things better, because we're not just idiots. We are most of the time, but we do care about security. So that's what happened there. That's always what happens, though. We're like, hey, this is going on in your machine. And they go, no, it's not. I know what I'm doing. And then you're like, PCAPs, don't lie, right? And you show them, and they're like, oh, no. So we did malware sandboxing. We did identity access management. That's because we failed. What happened there was we had one of the partners who, with the best intentions, thought they might have a vulnerability on their access points, and so, not their access points, their switches. So they were like, we're going to push a firmware update to all of these switches. And they did it at like midnight, and they didn't talk to me, and they didn't talk to Bart. And we came in the next day for trainings to start, and we were hard down. And we were down for 90 minutes, which is the longest outage we've ever had at Black Hat, and I hate that it happened. But it made me realize, like, okay, even if people are doing things with the best intentions, we need control over like who's committing changes, who's doing what, and if they are, who did it and at what time and where and all whatever. So we're like, well, here's a piece of the puzzle we haven't been using that we need to, and so we started doing that about 10 years ago. Once we had all that stuff locked in on the network endpoint, obviously you're not going to install stuff on your machines, but we have iPads for registration, laptops that are the corporate laptops, all the different scanners they use on the expo floor to scan your badges with, every one of those iPhones. Like we use Cisco for mobile device management for that. And so we're looking at endpoint telemetry as well, because if something goes on the reg server, which to us are the keys to the kingdom, right? Like that reg server gets attacked like you wouldn't believe. The moment it comes online, it is under attack. And so, so we're watching to see, to make sure that nothing bad actually happens. And then once we have endpoint taken care of, we were like, with the scale of the show, we've got to automate these things. I can't walk to every classroom, and we've got a little bit more. Just a few more slides. I'm sorry. I talk a lot. Sorry. If it sucks, you can leave. You don't have to feel bad. You can go back there. They got booze. So what we started doing with automation, put a SOAR system in place. That's it. That's them telling me I got to go. So boom, microphone dies. So for investigations, it allowed us to collect everything from all the different partners and put it under one ticket. But also what it allowed us to do is send out messages like this, where if we see clear text account creds, confirmed malware, or crypto mining, we will send them essentially a captive portal that says, if you are receiving this automatically generated message because the Black Hat NOC has detected malware coming from this machine. If this traffic is legitimate, please disregard this message. If this traffic is unintentional and you have concerns about the detected behavior, please feel free to email the Black Hat NOC at knock@blackhat.com to discuss with one of our analysts. And people will come to the NOC and they'll be like, I got this message, and we'll show them the logs, we'll show them the PCAPs, we'll say, here's what's looking, it looks like when you got on the network, you immediately started beaking out to known C2, like, are you supposed to be doing that? And they're like, no, right? And so but we can give them the data to go back to their companies and do something about it. So often people think like, oh, I'm gonna go to Black Hat and get hacked, but the reality is we have about 60 really, really intelligent security folks and threat hunters who are in there looking for stuff. So if you hook up to the network and you don't get that notification, maybe you're all right. So things that we're also doing are, using AIs and the machine learnings, right? So we're just trying to adapt and stay ahead of things. So that's really difficult to read, but essentially what you're looking at is we've taken each VLAN or each classroom, and we're like, when we look at the traffic that's coming out there, what type of exploit is being sent out, or what type of malicious traffic is going out from that classroom or on that VLAN, and then we plot it on a graph. And we say, oh, okay, it looks like of the 50 people in that class, 40 of them all launched the same exploit, or 40 of them all contacted the same server, or 40 of them all sent this type of malicious traffic to whatever. So that's likely a lab, or that's likely something that should be in that class. But then we'll be like, boop, there'll be a little guy that pops up over on the corner, and we're like, of 50 people in that class, one person just tried to use this exploit on a server that no one else touched, right? So we're like, that's an outlier. The hunters start looking at that, and that's how we find the bad within the bad, is it helps us zero in on those outliers and start to look for things that actually matter. It helps us do things like, even in this case, the little box you're looking at there was the registration Wi-Fi, and there was an anomaly on it where just a service that we needed to use was missing, and it just let us know, like, for some reason that laptop's not running what it should be. We also do things like this. This is a project that Dark Matter, if anybody of you are familiar with Dark Matter, Mike Spicer, he's an evil genius. Actually, he's just the sweetest man in the world. But he did the Wi-Fi cactus, if you're familiar with the Wi-Fi cactus. So dark matter created what he calls precogs, which are basically, they're just Raspberry Pis that he put a bunch of sensors on, and he has them calling out to different services and doing a bunch of different things, and then feeding it back into Cisco's Thousand Eyes. So what he's doing is proactively looking for latency or problems in the network, and then letting us know, like, hey, this part of the network is starting to get congested, or we're starting to see something fail, so that we can handle it before it becomes a problem. So when we're looking at this dashboard that we've got set up in Thousand Eyes here, we want it to be all green. And if we start to see it go yellow or orange, wherever, we know, like, okay, something's going on in the network, we take a look at it, we go, oh, it's really congested, it's this classroom, let's go deploy another access point, or let's go put some more resources, turn up, you know, the amount of bandwidth in that portion of the network, whatever it is, so that everybody has a good experience. So what do we see on the network? This kind of garbage. Every single show, we see VPNs misconfigured, LDAP to the internet, you know, emails in the clear. Emails in the clear today, right? That you have to actively try to make email secure. Now, you have to go in and turn shit off in order to make email insecure at this point, and people do it. We see really, really complex passwords sent in the clear, you know, like, great. And we see a lot of porn, gross. Company paid for you to be there, what are you doing? You're in the back of the class, leave it alone. Yeah, use your cell phone, yeah, animal. Every once in a while, we do fall flat on our face, and I think it's only fair to talk about those things. I mentioned before why we used identity and access management. So we had a partner who we used for that, and then we don't use them anymore, and we were in between figuring out who are we going to use for it, and we had to go to a show, and we're like, you know what? What could go wrong? One of the guys at Palo Alto had made a change to configuration on the firewall. They're not supposed to commit anything without talking to Bart or myself, and he knew that, and so he was like, I'm going to make this change, and I'll wait till lunch. It shouldn't affect anything, but I'll wait until lunch, so if it does, it's not a problem, and we can just roll it back. And then so he puts it in, but he doesn't commit, right? So he doesn't commit that config file, but it stays there, right? Like, it's just chilling, waiting. Somebody else from Palo Alto goes in and says, oh, I'm going to make a change to the config file. It's very minor. It's not going to cause any problems. Not an issue whatsoever. Nobody's going to know. They're going to know. And here's why. He commits it. It commits his change. And who else's change? You bet your ass, the guy before him. And it brought the network down. And the network was down for a total of probably about 8 minutes. But that's what happens when you let anybody make changes to your configs, right? So we did have a minor outage because of that. This is what the attacks look like on the registration server. So this is just a snapshot of some of the things that we get hit with. I know you can't read that really, but it is a dumpster fire. Everything that can possibly be thrown at that thing is getting thrown at it. And I know attribution is hard, but from the level of somebody in the hallway messing around to what we believe was a Russian nation-state attacker trying to get access to the database for the registration system. And it's like, well, why would you want that? Well, do you want 25,000 of the top security people's information? Yeah, you probably do if that's your bag, right? This one here, in this case, is it? Is it? Should I just hold it? Sorry, it's muscle memory at this point. So here we have, what we have is applications on the phone. In this case, this is a VPN. So everybody's like, use a VPN, and you should use a VPN, but you should also use one that isn't some random piece of shit you got for free. Maybe take the time to research what you're using and see what it does. In this case, the VPN was fine. It did what it was supposed to do, right? And the traffic was encrypted, and that's great. But what it also did was it did a keep alive every minute that was just calling out to a server from this mobile device, and every time it did it, it sent the latitude and longitude of the user of that mobile device in that ping, keep alive. And so we took this and we were like one of the guys in the knock was like, I'm writing a script. And he just pulled out of the traffic the latitude, longitude, and we could watch this guy move throughout the conference. We could just watch him moving around. And I'm like, that's horrifying. But know what your applications are doing. Don't assume that they're secure. If you have things on your phone that you're worried about, fire up Wireshark, get on your wireless at home, start looking at stuff, open up the app, see what it does. In this case, this was one of our Singapore shows. We saw a whole lot of what we would consider malicious traffic. Like this was to a public websites. SQL injection, WordPress attacks, Log4j exploit attempts, enumeration, CRO manipulation, lots of scanning to various public sites, restaurant chains, and payment providers, right? So this is all going on in the network, coming from one device and going out at stuff on the internet. And that happens a lot. People come to Black Hat, they learn new things, they get excited, and they go, I gotta do this, I gotta throw it at something. In one case, I had to go down to a classroom and be like, hey, stop attacking the police precinct from your hometown. Like, why? Why? Like, and there's just a web hacking class, and the guy was like, I learned a new thing. And it's like, great, man. Want to go to jail? Like, but that was literally, I'm like, someone's attacking a police department. And sure enough, it was just somebody in a classroom who was like, I got a new tool. Yeah, so we saw this stuff, and it's going out to public things, and that happens at every show. Probably 3 to 5 times throughout a show, I have to go to a classroom and say, and sometimes I just get annoyed. I'm like, here we go again. And I'll just open the door, and I'll be like, doing things at Black Hat that are illegal are still illegal. And I close the door, and it stops, right? So it's like, just because you're here doesn't mean, and they think like, well, it's probably masked by all the stuff. Nobody's going to know. And they do learn things, and they start firing it at the whole damn internet. But in this case, this person was going off. And so we knew, based on where the traffic was coming from and the access point they were associated with, generally what area they were in. So we went looking for them. And we're like, there shouldn't be anybody in that area right now because those classes don't start until tomorrow. And we go look, and there's a guy sitting on a bench just with his laptop. And we're like, that's the guy. Like, that's got to be the guy. And so we sent him this. And it just says, Dear Black Hat attendee, doing illegal activities at Black Hat is still illegal. Please discontinue attempting to execute vulnerabilities on live internet-facing websites. This is a violation of the Black Hat Code of Conduct. Love the knock. P.S. If it continues, we will come find you. The joke is that we already found them. and he was like, boop! And then, because we're watching, there's guys in the knock who are like, okay, we're going to send it now. We're sending it now. Okay, we send it now. And he's running away, right? So it usually stops immediately, and it is fun. It is interactive. And like I said, we see things that look illegal fairly frequently. In this case, this was somebody who, I mentioned anomalies, so you can see some of the other people in the class and the types of exploits that they were using. And then there's old Purple over here, and he's throwing everything and the kitchen sink at one particular company that's just public-facing. We're like, this is not normal. This isn't part of the class. Let's take a look. We look at all his traffic. He's hammering away on this company. And it's egregious enough that, again, I decide I'll go down there. So I walk down to the classroom. They got a little stage at the front. I jump up. I'm like, hi, I'm Grifter from the Black Hat Knock. Doing illegal things at Black Hat is still illegal. Whoever it is who's attacking public infrastructure, can you please stop that now? And this is the only time this has ever happened. A guy went, that's me. And I was like, well, this will be interesting, right? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, that's me. I'm doing a pen test for a company, and I didn't get to finish it before I came. So I'm done with my lab, and in between the labs, I'm just doing whatever. And I'm like, just so I'm clear on this, you are doing a pen test on an open Wi-Fi network to one of your paying customers at Black Hat, which is known for having an incredibly hostile network. And he was like, yeah, but it's fine. I mean, I can show you that I have permission to do it. And I was like, well, you're gonna stop, because one, it's unethical. Also, what company do you work for? So I never hire them. And he was like, no, it's fine, it's totally fine. And I said, look, man, we normally don't block stuff here, but if you continue, we'll just block you off the network. And he was like, fine. I'm sure he went back to his hotel room, and then on the hotel network, kept doing his pen test. But we were like, seriously, the stuff that you see. And then finally, in this case, this was at the Singapore show. We saw, again, what looked like traffic to a known command and control server. We're like, okay, this is something that we need to take a look at. It was egregious enough that we could see that it was active exfiltration going on at the time. And so I'm like, all right, well, where is it? And we try to do identification where we can. So I'm just like, give me information, all the information about that device, anything you can. And so we had like a partial host name. I was like, that looks like part of a last name. I went to registration. I said, can you give me every last name that has these characters in it? And they said, sure. And there were 3 people who came up, and then one of them said speaker. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, all right, it's just probably somebody doing a demo, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, when is this guy, when's this guy speaking? And it's like, oh, now. Okay, so great. He's up on stage, he's doing his demo. And then I look at the talk title, and I'm like, that's not what this is about. I was like, oh my gosh. So I go, all right, well, go with Pope, my buddy Pope. We walk down to the session that he's in, and we're waiting off to the side of the stage. The guy gets done speaking. He comes off the stage, and we're like, hey, man, we're seeing active exfiltration going from your laptop right now. Is that something that you're aware is happening? Is that when he's like, no? And we're like, okay, well, here's what we're seeing, da-da-da-da-da. Post-mortem on that, it was a malicious Chrome extension. He was actually compromised, and it was just siphoning data off of his laptop. The point of that story is that this is somebody who was on stage at Black Hat. This is a Black Hat speaker, which often people say like, oh, a DEF CON speaker, a Black Hat speaker, a Seckc speaker, oh my gosh. Those people must know what they're talking about. And here's the thing, he does know what he's talking about, right? But it doesn't matter that you know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter that you have content that was good enough to get past a review board of what's supposed to be some of the smartest people that are in the industry to put your research up on stage. Sometimes we all click the link. Sometimes we open the file. Like, it can happen to any of us. So if it happens to you or me or whoever, if it happens to a Black Hat speaker and they're on stage live doing it, it can be any of us. So when you hear that somebody's been breached, when you hear that somebody clicked the link, give them some grace. It can happen to all of us. Thanks.
Good job. All right, everybody give it up for Grifter. Did you guys see some of the faces on that last slide? Can we put that back up real quick? I don't know if you recognize some of these folks. It's all Trent and Bill, so. That's how I know. All right, let's give it up for Joe Marshall. Thank you for coming out. Thank you to our sponsors, Cisco, Palo Alto, Soft Warfare. Thank you for sponsoring. I think we're going to try to do a group picture real quick before we call it a night. If everybody wants to come forward, we'll turn up the lights a little bit. And Jurist, are you there? Awesome. All right, let's do a group picture, and then we'll call it a night. Thanks for coming out.